you bless that with. Father, as we are here to accomplish a task, may you ensure that we do that successfully, and at the end, we give glory to your name. Those who are on their way, we ask for traveling mercies as well. In Jesus' name, we pray thanksgiving. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gato. We'll call on the Vice Chancellor for UHAS, Professor Lydia Ziato, to give us a short welcome message. Please let's put our hands together for her to come.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Oh, I said good morning. It's like it's like you didn't sleep well or something like that. First time in Ho, can you give me a wave? Like you've not been here before. Oh, really? That's quite a number. How do you find our typology, our environment, our ambience? Not campus here, but I mean generally. And very fresh, no traffic, no galamsey, no hawking on the road. I mean, the oxygen is very high. And you can sleep until you die in your sleep if you are lazy. Anyway, so we find ourselves here, the only public university designated to train health professionals. I was in the University of Ghana since 2001 to last year. And I thought that it was easy, right? It was easy to have systems running, everybody. And then you come to a new environment, a young university, and you realize that the journey is not the same. The game is not the same altogether. Well, I'm saying this because some of you are in the space and you may find it difficult to appreciate some of the decisions that your leaders take. I must say that if you are in an environment where you have a specialized orientation, it is more challenging. It's more challenging because if you want to train a nurse, you want to train a doctor, a pharmacist, a midwife, any of the allied health professionals, it's not only theory. So in other universities where you have maybe the humanities programs, so you teach, you examine, full stop. But here, you do GTech requirements, you do the professional regulatory bodies requirements, so you pay twice. Let's put that one aside. You come and do exam, you do the theory, you have to do the practical exam. And the practical exam also is not just using your own people. You have to bring external people, and the cost of bringing them is a different ball game. And then when you teach, you don't only teach theory, you have to also teach the practice, or the practicals, or the skills aspects. And it makes it very expensive to run. And that is the challenge we have here in a specialized university like I find myself leading. The second thing is that when you have the law making it mandatory to have a multiple campus is also another challenge altogether. So you find us here in Ho, and then you go to Hohwe. In the law that set up this university, it says that the university must be present in these two places. So look at here, we have a 702-acre land. It's more empty than occupied. Our road network has not been done and all that. So that means that our internet issues and water and all that is also a challenge. And then you can go to Hohwe is west. Hohwe, we have a 902-acre land with a small get-fund uncompleted facility on it. So the government gave us land at the beginning, empty land. Where is the money to now bring structures up when you have student population of just barely over 9,000, 929 or 8 thereabouts? Meanwhile, other schools, they have about 72,000, 60-something thousand students, so you get more IGF. But our IGF go into training of the students because you can't have a half-baked doctor. Why am I saying all this as a GARNET opening remark opportunity? I'm saying this so that those of you who work within the space should understand that when you need something and the leader says, wait, or we can't do it, or we cannot get you all of it, you have to understand that it's not that easy to juggle and make sure you meet everybody halfway. That said, is also that because it's a public university, you can't charge your own student, your own cost. You can't. Because the government is paying you. You can't also recruit, as you wish. So, unfortunately, the payroll doesn't accommodate part-time faculty or people who help. So if you have part-time, it has to come from your IGF. Now, I ask first-time people, if I ask you to stay here, will you stay? What would be the conditions that you would stay? Some people came and they left. Why did they leave? So at the end, we have more part-timers because the full-time faculty is not enough to go around. So apart from doing all the things, you have to also, pay the people who help, who are not on your payroll. Now, I see ICT as the heart of the university. If I finish school today, 10 years, I need my transcript. If my ICT system is bad, can I get a transcript? If I have students who come in admissions, the ICT system is bad, can they even register? Can I even track the 9,000 or so students, those who owe, if the ICT system is very bad? If the ICT system is bad and the faculty member enters the results, examination results, can somebody hack in and go and change the scores? If the ICT system is bad, can we have our online, COVID taught us that you can do some of the things online, those that are theory, you don't need any practical demonstration. You can go online. If the ICT system is bad, can we do it? So for me, ICT is the heart of the university. And so if the vice chancellor or the management or your deans and directors are worried about how to keep the quality, the system running, how do we deliver on our mandate, and the ICT system is weak, all our efforts will be in vain. So I want to employ all of you that I beg you, you should commit to integrity. You should commit to, if the ICT staff is corrupt, you can admit 5 students. By the time they come to school, they are 7. You can score 5/10. By the time the results are published, it's 7/10. The ICT staff are dear to my heart. ICT finance audits, procurement, those 4 category of staff, for me, is the most important. You can have the best quality faculty. If the ICT, procurement, finance audits are weak, your university is nothing to write home about. So please, those of you who are hands-on, who are parts of the system, I beg you, let integrity be your watchword. This world, we all want to leave something behind, but after all, you go with nothing. Once, the 6 feet, you go with nothing. So as much as I acknowledge that we all need to have some motivation, some growth, some progress, some properties in quotes, we also need to know that we will go with nothing. Rome was not built in a day. I mean, as the day go and come, you get to where you want to get to. But I want to acknowledge my former Vice Chancellor here, Professor Tego, for his mentorship over the years. In fact, before I got the courage to even apply for this position, I needed to talk to him for some for some vim and all that. And Prof, I'm grateful for, you may not know this, but my resilience, my push, my drive, my sleepless nights of making sure I break the glass ceiling was because of you. Many years ago, I remember the meeting we had with you when attempts was being made to bring a non-nurse to lead the School of Nursing and Midwifery. We were, fighting, in quotes, to ensure that we had a nurse leading us. And you told us, bring a nurse who is a professorial rank, who qualified. And from the north to the south, we couldn't find one. We didn't have any. We didn't have any nurse who was a professorial rank, associate professor. And that meeting was a life-changing meeting for me. And I said, never will it happen that it would come to pass that this situation would arise again. And Prof, I will say that that meeting you had with us was a life-changing meeting for me. So thank you very much for standing your ground and pushing some of us out of our shells. And I also want to say hello to Professor Ahiniba. He knows, and I know what I am saying hello for. And so, Prof, we are very grateful for everything. The distance education program, the Sakai, and all that, you know already. So thank you for helping us to have that open-mindedness and to seeing that life is not about the chalk and the board, but you can do other things innovatively. Thank you so much. So I think that tomorrow I was supposed to be here, but we have council meeting starting at 9. So I told my director that I would not be able to come because council is my boss, so I can't do otherwise. But we are here with you in spirit. Whatever we can do to make your stay here comfortable, we will do. And we wish you a fruitful deliberation today and tomorrow. We want you to come back to home again. We are very, very open to receive you again and again and again. Every year, you can choose to be here. We don't have a problem. So on behalf of council management and myself, I wish to say that we thank the organizers, the leaders, for choosing you as this year as your venue for your conference. And the organizing team led by my able director, thank you for the hard work and all the challenges thereof. I'm sure that at the end, everything will be fine. So I wish you all well and you enjoy your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Please, let's put hands together for you again. We'll call on Professor Clifford Niboy Tego, former VC of University of Ghana and chairman of the board for GARNET, to give us a short message. Let's put our hands together for him as he comes up.
Thank you, MC. Madam Vice Chancellor, in the recent past, I was referring to her as Madam Dean. And this was during a period when we were writing a book together on the history of our College of Health Sciences. And she will tell you what a slave driver I had been. They were busy with their job, and I was on their case all the time. When am I getting this draft? When am I getting that part? I think you missed the date here. Please, let me have it. And we worked very, very well. Now the book is out. What's our title? It's a history of the University of Ghana College of Health Sciences. But it's got a nice rider, Excellence in Education, Healthcare, and Research. She did her part. I was hoping to see you tomorrow. So the suit is still in the wardrobe, my room. So if you see me looking like somebody on vacation, that's the reason. All the same, I'll use the suit tomorrow, and since you'll be with us in spirit. But let me, on behalf of Garnet, thank you very much. First, for accepting to host this annual general meeting, which has been expanded to include workshops and so on. And I'm particularly pleased that you're ready to receive us here anytime. So, CEO, note, if we don't get proposal to go somewhere else, we know where we are coming. We're coming to in the near future. Thank you very much. And we're also pleased, and thank you for the inspiring words. Many of the people here are very young, and they are the future of our institution. So once we know they are interested in the important things, we know that the future is assured for us. I thought you clap for yourselves. You are the future. So without, my address will be for tomorrow. So my purpose is to once again thank the Vice Chancellor and the University of Health and Allied Sciences. Yes, Health and because of our School of Health and Allied Sciences, anytime I get there, I get a little tongue twister there. We're happy to be here, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let's do it again, please. So before we move to the agenda for the day, I'll humbly ask all those at my right-hand side to move to this side, please. Let's put our hands together for them as they get up. You can move to the side. Thank you very much. So we have lined up 3 seasoned speakers to talk to us about digital infrastructure for scholarly publishing in Ghana, the challenges and opportunities. He is an information scientist, a professional librarian, researcher, lecturer, author, and consultant with 24 years of experience in research and academic environment. He holds a PhD in information science, MBA in human resource management, MA in library studies, a BA in history and archaeology, and a certificate in scientific information management. He's currently the university librarian for the University of Cape Coast. But before joining UCC, he was a librarian at the Methodist University College from 2005 to 2017, and a librarian for the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, Institute of Scientific and Technological Information. He's also the chair for the Management Committee of the Consortium of Academic and Research Libraries in Ghana. He's the chair for the Academic Libraries and Library Consortia section of the Africa Library Associations and Institutions. He has taught several courses including Electronic Business Management Information Systems, Records Management, and Information Organization. He has over 24 publications, books, chapters in books reviewed, and conference papers to his credit. He has been a consultant for many organizations in Ghana, including SNIT, Community Water and Sanitation Agency, the Bank of Ghana, Heritage Christian College, and ECG Training School. He is a reviewer and editor for several international journals in his field of specialization. He has participated in and presented papers at several international conferences in the UK, US, Belgium, Netherlands, Kenya, Denmark, Ethiopia, Malawi, South Africa, Uganda, Zimbabwe, etc. Let's kindly put our hands together for Dr. Mark Anthony Kobler. Professor Peter Amwako Yenchi holds a PhD in mathematics with an emphasis on computer vision and scientific computing. In the past decade, he has trained over 30 PhDs and several postgraduate students in scientific computing and industrial modeling. He has worked with several international organizations on many projects, including the UN, WHO, CERN, and UNESCO. He has been a core member of the Citizen Cyber Science Center in Geneva, Switzerland. He has also consulted and developed several application suites and set up network infrastructure in several countries, including Rwanda and Morocco, through the IBPS UNESCO e-Library and Infrastructure Project. He is currently the lead scientist for the High Performance Throughput Computing Laboratory hosted by KNUST. He is the Director of Scientific and Technical Computing at the National Institute for Mathematical Sciences, Ghana. He served for 3 terms as the KNUST IT consultant responsible for the technology mission of the university. He has organized and facilitated many training workshops and conferences. He has publications and specific research interests in grid computing, volunteer and high-performance computing, fractional and substrate differential equations, reservoir simulation, human gut, face and fingerprint recognition, among others. He is a member of the H3 Africa and has served as the H3 BioNet node lead for KNUST and co-PI for the West African Sustainable Leadership and Innovation Training in bioinformatics research. He is a research lead for advanced computing and digital forensic in the KNUST Engineering Education Program, an African Center for Excellence program. He has served on several national and international boards, including representing public universities on the board of Ghana's National Research and Education Network. Let's kindly put our hands together for Professor Peter Amwako Yenchi as he comes up. Our third presenter for this morning is Ivan Stechi Ankoma Asari. He holds a PhD in Management Science and Engineering, as well as a Master's in Learning in Complex Systems awarded by the University College of Akershus, Norway. He has participated in several international conferences, including the prestigious British Council's Going Global and Science Mathematics International Conference, an international network for quality assurance agencies in higher education. His research interests are in complexities and analysis of information networks with special focus on decision science, higher education, and operational research. Let's kindly put our hands together for Ivan Stechi and Koma Asari. Please, we can do it better for them. So we invite Dr. Kobler to give us a presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So it's already in the presentation mode. Yes. This one. Okay, that's one. Where's the pointer? All right, thank you very much. So good morning. All protocols observed. But at least let me acknowledge the former Vice Chancellor and the Vice Chancellor of this great university. It's really a beautiful campus. Anytime you come, there's add-ons. The last time I was here, some buildings were not here. But I see there are some improvements. Congratulations, madam. And the Chief Executive Officer and all the governing board members of GARNET, you are duly acknowledged. In fact, I was so excited to be invited by the CEO and the team to be part of this conference, particularly to make this presentation on the digital infrastructure for scholarly publication in Ghana. I was excited because it's really an issue for us as somebody involved in information management, somebody working very closely with scholars, researchers, publishers, and book vendors. I was really worried about the situation in Ghana, and I thought that starting the conversation on this issue was relevant. So I'm happy about the topic, and I'm happy about the discussion today. Right. So my introduction will just look at the need for this infrastructure, the importance of this digital infrastructure. We need to emphasize that once more. Then now, I know if it comes to digital infrastructure, you are best placed to discuss them because that's your domain. But I will just refresh your mind about some of the things that are needed. Then I'll dwell more on the Ghanaian publishing environment, especially the digital publishing. What are the challenges and the issues? Then I will suggest a way forward for our discussion, and I hope that your input will also be useful. I saw this quote, and I really like it, and I've been searching as an information scientist. I've never seen the author. Digital infrastructure, empowering the future of publishing, connecting ideas worldwide. So just be thinking about this quote. Probably I'll conclude on this note. And we'll all look for the author of this quote. Right. So by way of introduction, yes, it is important that as stakeholders in the academic environment, we begin to look at the issue of providing the requisite digital infrastructure to support digital publishing because of the obvious advantage that it has for our community and even our nation. And I also want to mention that it demands a collaborative approach. In our discussion with GARNET, some time back, that's Kali and Garnet, we realized that, yes, Garnet will provide a technical infrastructure, and some other people will have to also assist in the content, in providing the content. So the whole process requires a collaborative approach, and we don't have to lose sight of this right from the beginning. Then, as part of my introduction, looking at what is happening in the digital world in terms of publication, I also want to mention that we should not also lose sight of the quality control systems. It's very important. The fact that we are now going to publish digitally doesn't mean that we should compromise the well-known and established publishing of quality literature for consumption. That's also very important. Then, also to make the point that digital publishing has the potential of making the research output of our country, or even if you like, of the African continent, more visible and impactful. And I don't have to believe at this point. There are too many of the research outputs from Africa and in Ghana in particular that don't have web presence, that are hidden on the shelves, hidden in the libraries, that we have to bring out. So you can see the need for this discussion. Then, the fact that the infrastructure, the digital infrastructure, are not only going to be exclusively used for publishing, they also support other important areas like e-commerce, cloud computing, social media, Internet of Things, etc. So if we develop this infrastructure, it's not going to be, the use will not be limited to only publishing. It will also support other areas that are equally important. So, because of these reasons, I believe that it is about time we start the conversation of coming together to develop the digital infrastructure for our universities and our nation. I'll do more on this, but basically the key things that we are looking at over here are the digital repositories. And in addressing the topic, we'll come to look at whether we are doing well on this or not. To what extent are we ensuring that our universities are building institutional repositories to keep the research output and other important records that need sustainable preservation. Then the issue about data management, data centers, is also of importance in this discussion. The almighty open access and open science, I'll also talk briefly about it, is important. To what extent have we prepared the grounds to embrace these concepts and make the best use of it for the benefit of our clienteles, our community, and our nation? Then the issue of research, collaboration, and communication. Without a digital infrastructure, that is not going to be possible. So then the digital preservation of our research, as I stand here now, a very known Ghanaian businessman, Sam Jonah, is the chancellor of UCC, has asked me for a book published by the late Reverend Jobo, the first edition, Africa Proverbials. I have combed this country, every corner. We can get it. This afternoon, I'm going to meet the wife to see whether the wife has a copy somewhere. That is how bad it is. That is how bad it is. I was in the US some 2 years ago, and I was at the Library of Congress, and I was sent to the Ghana collections, and I saw things there that no Ghanaian institution has. If I can recall, they were holding about 28 million collections on Ghana in the US Library of Congress. Which library, which institution in our country has those collections? So we need to be conscious and intentional about this, to preserve, consciously preserve intellectual property, preserve research outputs for sustainable reasons. Otherwise, in the next few years, as the Vice Chancellor said, we will all be gone and nothing will be there for anybody to remember this country for. Of course, the issue about metrics and evaluations, we want to track our research, we want to see what is going on. That also provides a justification for us to ensure that we provide a digital infrastructure. What I've been doing is just to emphasize the importance of our universities, our institutions, GARNET, the nation, investing into this digital infrastructure, because the importance of this cannot be overemphasized. It's as good as you all know. Now, when we talk about digital infrastructure, as I said, you are best placed. You are ICT people, and you understand this thing better. But basically, I like something about it. The underlying technological systems and networks that enables the functioning of digital services and communication. I like the word underlying, because these are not, sometimes people don't know about this. How come university can do an online admission? How come university can do distant learning using systems? It's not known to many people. There are people who have built infrastructure. There's something hiding somewhere, non-sin, that is facilitating that. A lot of people don't know. You just come to work and I remember somewhere where the ICT directors were blamed for not working, and one day they decided to just shut down the server, and everything went off. Then they say, we just want you to know that we are working. Because you come every day and you have service, you think that we are not working. Somebody is ensuring that the service is coming from somewhere. So these are underlying infrastructure that usually are not visible. So people don't really know. If sometimes when you even go and tell your Vice Chancellor, you need to buy this at this price, they think that is too expensive. Recently, I was told that my ICT director wanted to buy a camera at 85,000 Ghana cedis for the web management team, and people were saying, what kind of camera is that? It's 85,000 Ghana cedis camera. For what? When they told me about the functions of that camera, and I saw the need for it. So I need to emphasize that this infrastructure can be, it's underlying, it's not visible sometimes. That brings the second point about it being physical or virtual. So that's also very important to mention that. As for the component of this digital infrastructure, I won't waste time on it. Of course, the hardware, various hardware, the networks, data centers of all kinds. But the challenge for me is to what extent are we collaborating as GARNET, as universities, in building this infrastructure? Are we duplicating the efforts, wasting the same money, doing the same things? To what extent, and I will leave that for discussion, are we going to collaborate to ensure that we don't duplicate effort and we have value for money? That's also very important. Internet service providers, they are key in this infrastructure. Software, cloud infrastructure, you know this is better. Cybersecurity, Internet of Things, and all the various things that I'm not able to mention because of time. So these are some of the basics. So it is a composition of items. What I've left out is the IT expertise is also very important, equally important. And it starts from there. If you don't have the ICT expertise to build this infrastructure, manage them, then there's a problem. That's how you become so important in the discussion of these issues. Now, let me now go to the digital infrastructure for scholarly publishing, because that's the first part is just about the general infrastructure. So in terms of what do we need to put in place to support digital publishing? And again, it's still about technological systems, networks, underlying ones, and all that I mentioned in the past few minutes are still relevant in building the infrastructure for ICT to support digital publishing. But as a professional who supports scholarly communication, I just want to take the issues one by one. But what I want to say is that at the end of the day, we can still build a one-stop or an integrated system to do all the things that we'll talk about. So let me, I know that one single system can support what I'm going to talk about. But we want infrastructure that will support online submission of articles to journals. We want infrastructure that will support that. It's very important. And don't think about this as only the software. No. A whole lot of things will have to come in. An infrastructure that will support peer review, that will have a peer review platforms. An infrastructure that will support open access platforms and digital repositories, digital object identifiers. And some of them, I will explain them to you. An infrastructure that will support content management systems. What goes into the publication. An infrastructure that will support data sharing and integration. Metadata standards and another big word, interoperability. The one that will support discovery and indexing services, analytics and metrics. So these processes are very important in digital publishing. So when you are developing a system for digital publishing, you must have all these processes in mind. But the good thing is that you can have, as I said earlier on, an application or a system that can support all these processes as we have now. Because if you want to go digital in publishing, especially for academic journals, these things are very relevant. Right. Now, I will just briefly talk about this one. I think because most of the ICT directors, I'm sure, publishing, scientific publishing processes, but the professors that are here know what I'm talking about. But it's good to for you to understand the processes. There's research or manuscript to be developed. There's peer review of the manuscript. There's a that brings about editorial processes, editorial evaluation, editorial assessment, issues about credibility and recognition that you must have in mind. So when you are developing these systems, have in mind that the system should support all these processes. And issues about digital preservation. So in an academic environment, if you are developing a system for supporting or managing your university journals, this issue, they are very important. So I just want to bring this to your notice. And the point about the relevance of scholarly publishing, I think I've already emphasized that, and I've explained this already. I've explained the processes involved already. There's a research, there's a selection of some review, and let me not repeat this things again, let me jump over them and go into the publishing environment. How does it look like? And I will start with, I once had a call from a provost from my university. He was publishing a book, and they wanted a creditable publisher from Ghana. And I was struggling, because most of them are just printing presses. I recommended one for them. Before that, they were working with an outside one that was also a predatory publisher. So they ended up giving the job to the outside one, and at a very high cost. When they came, people were not happy about the publisher. There's a publishing house in Germany. I don't know whether you have heard about Lambert. Have you heard about it? People always doubt their credibility. So the Ghanaian publishing environment, yes, is still evolving. It's diverse. We have those involved in publishing educational materials, basically textbooks for basic secondary school and some of them tertiary education. They are being regulated. I don't know the quality control systems that are in place, but we have publishers producing books based on the curriculums that the government provide for these schools. That class is there. I don't know how they are regulated. I know there's Ghana Book Development Council. I don't know the state to which they are ensuring quality. They are basically manual. They haven't just gone digital. We call them the traditional publishing houses. Then we also have in the academies, we also have our universities having their own journals, publishing from various disciplines. Sometimes we have multiple disciplinary journals. Sometimes we have subject specific. Most of them are not yet digital. I just want you to understand the situation. So there's academic publishing, not digital. There's educational publishing, also not very digital. But a few people are attempting digital. Other half or partial digital, I can't tell. So digital publishing in Ghana I realized that there's an EPP e-books. There's e-books Ghana. And another one that I saw. And I've been checking and just find out what they are doing. It was not clear to me whether these are recognized and known digital publishers. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, West, of course, there's an issue. It's a challenge. And the issue is that the infrastructure is not there. Level is not there at, and this discussion, we need to look at it. So that brings me to the issue of the challenges and the opportunities. Let me just keep all these things. Opportunities. Yes. What are the opportunities for us? GARNET, as Cali, as university administrators. The open access and open access initiatives provide us with opportunity for digital publishing. If you understand the concept of open access and open science, people are busy sponsoring, creating platforms for us to. There are lots. Africa Commons, Africa Digital Repositories, Africa Archive, a lot. Fishare, and some of them are really even approaching us, those of us in the industry, to just bring our research output to their platform. They'll manage them for us. So without even you having infrastructure, you can take advantage. So that's one clear opportunity for us. But we want to have our own. We want to have our own. Why should we also go and give our, who knows what is behind all this is? Maybe all we have there, and one day they lock it and we can have access to it. So I think despite this, we should be working towards having, and we have a Ghanaian repository. Egypt has it. There's Egypt Knowledge Bank. They have one. Some other countries are also doing that. We can also have our own national, and this morning, when the CEO was bringing me here, we had a discussion that we need to build repositories and link them. The digital libraries and repositories are there in isolation. They are there. My university has, UG has, KUSD, most of the universities have their own repositories and digital libraries. So it's an opportunity for us to build them. They are there. Working in isolation, we are not collaborating enough. We are doing our own things, we are duplicating. It's about time we start discussing how we can come together, build on them. A national reflection, a national resemblance. Yes, the online system that I talk about, yes, they are there. Some people have them. Very, very few. Most universities are now using the OJS, online journal system, which is open access. There's one gentleman here who has done very well for us. And we are also helping other universities to also have it. We need to, as GARNET and maybe Cali, and intentionally, consciously support all universities, ensure that their journals are published online, so that the research output will be visible to the world. Yes, research data management is there. I'm sure every university has a directorate of research, and doing one thing or the other. So that coordination is there. So it's an opportunity for us. So as I said, the awareness and advocacy is there, but it's not enough. So I'm looking at the opportunities that are there that will ensure that we go digital in publishing our research outputs. Of course, the digital infrastructure is also there, but to a limited extent. And I'm happy at what GARNET is doing. Many universities are still struggling with the digital infrastructure. The collaboration, I'm talking about it as an opportunity, but I'll dwell more of it as a challenge. Yes, some form of collaboration is there, and networking, but it's not strong enough to get us to where we want to go. The digital literacy or digital literacy is also a problem. You have no idea, even professors, with all respect to our professors here, some of them do not have even these digital literacy skills. It's a fact. Because if we are going to publish digitally, it means that accessing this information will also require digital skills, literacy skills. So it's there as an opportunity, but it's more of a challenge for us. So there's a lot I can talk about in terms of the opportunities that we have. But let me go to the challenges for the sake of time. One of it, of course, is the well-known internet asset issues, which we cannot run away from. Even the universities that are so endowed with resources and have internet, there are issues. There are issues. Everywhere you go, there are issues. I was at BAM forever. When the students are on vacation, it's very fast. It tells you adequate. So how do we publish digital with the current internet? It's not going to work. Because if it's digital, if you have a strong internet to access it, it will remain on the network as a white elephant. Then, of course, the challenge of this digital divide, I've mentioned that already, where we are at different levels. So even if you want to collaborate, there's going to be a challenge. Even the bigger universities are at different levels. So it's also a big challenge. Funding, and I'm talking about sustainable funding, is also a challenge at all levels, at the national level, at the institutional level, departmental level. There's no sustainable funding for these things, and there's a need to look at it. And this issue of our quality control standards, even our institutional repositories, if you take 3, UG, UCC, KNUST, you see that in study, you see that there are differences, there are issues. There are issues. If we want to move forward, I think country. Now people are using the version 7 of this space. It's very beautiful. Some are using the first version. Is it 5.4? We are at different levels. So we need to control system. Some of the repositories, serious mistakes. Nobody. The concept when it came was that there should be an institutional management processes. But it's not there. Everything is just begin to find things that are substandard in our repositories. So the quality control system is a challenge. Of course, the copyright issues is also a big challenge, because there was an order somewhere that put all the publications of our lecturers repository. Then I told somebody that you can't say that because some of them have copyright. Recently, there was one of our staff who pursued outside our university, and he submitted his thesis, and I was instructed to put that thesis in the report. I said, no, we need to that awarded a degree. So there are still copyright issues, because sometimes you must be sure that you are copyright compliant. Then this resistance to change is also a big issue. People are just not willing to accept new things. Look, I have managed, we have established a scholarly communication unit in my university library. So we are supporting the journals. We used to have about 50 journals when we counted some time back. But when we brought standards, when we brought policy to regulate, as of now, we don't have even 20. I think we have about 17 that have made a standard. So the one that we have published on our website. And there are some that are still fighting me that you have taken away our physical journal. So we are no more getting money. So some people still try to open access. No, people don't believe in that. But that's another talk for another day. Somebody should be providing free. You don't want to. That's also a big issue. I've already mentioned the issue of standardization. I've mentioned, so the way forward, and that's important. We need to do more awareness creation, advocacy on these issues of developing data infrastructure to support scholarly publishing in Ghana. It's very important. We need to build on the infrastructure. I know there's something on the ground in each institution. Of course, some don't have. But those of us who have, we need to intentionally develop this infrastructure, and we know what I'm talking about. We need to also build capacity through training of all the stakeholders, the researchers, the scholars, authors, and those in the information management value chain, and every one of us, the ICT people who are developing infrastructure, we need to build capacity across all the stakeholders if we want to succeed in this endeavor. In fact, the working in isolation must stop. We need to collaborate. We don't have the resources. One way of optimizing our limited resources is to collaborate and share. I mean, one university can develop a platform on OGS, and those who don't have can even, they can host the other journals there for them. Why not? So we need to network and collaborate more and avoid duplications and waste of resources. One of the things I didn't talk about as a challenge was lack of policies and regulations in this area. No, they are not there at the institutional level. There are no policies. I don't know how many universities have open science policy. If you should read, I'm sure some will not know, but I'm sure most of us don't have. There are no policies. Some of us still don't even have ICT policies. There are no policies. You see, the only thing that can prevent this issue about people using their personal discretion to do things they want to do things is when we put policies in place to guide. So we need to start a national conversation on national policy on digital publishing. And our institutional policy will emanate from this national policy. And this policy will bring about the standardization and all the things that I've talked about earlier on. We need sustainable funding and budgets for these things. And that's very important. And it's important. So I will end with my quotation again, the one that I started with. Sorry. Digital infrastructure and future of publishing, connecting ideas worldwide. And I believe we have started the conversation. For the sake of time, I know it's a panel discussion. I had to limit my discussion. I have many other things to say, but I will end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. So it's going to be a discussion, contributions, questions, everything. So the floor is open for questions, contributions. So actually he presented on their behalf, so they are here to help with the discussions. No. So kindly raise your hand if you need a mic.
Hello. Yes, my name is Emmanuel Apo from UCC. Prof touched on a very area that I want to ask something about. Looking at the technicians on campus or various institutions, we normally write reports, technical reports, on every project or any assigned project given to us. On this, can we also have a platform on the research whereby we can publish some of these technical reports, and if possible, we can even generate a topic from it so that going forward, we can also do a research on that so that they can even add to our progress as well. And the next one goes to GARNET. I don't know if I'm permitted. But then I was also thinking that once this training is based on networking and stuff, we should also look at the cybersecurity side of it, the attacks that maybe when it comes to attack on GARNET network, that which we are going to control, we should be able to overcome such attacks. And conference like this, we should be able to share the experiences so that going forward, we'll all be on the same page. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. My name is Harun Al-Hassan from University of Media, Art and Communication, Institute of Languages. Doc, I would like to thank you very much for the wonderful presentation that you have delivered. In fact, I must say you have almost touched almost all the areas, key areas that I must say I don't know how to put it. You have touched almost all the key areas that we as IT experts should know, especially with the issue of a national repository in Ghana. I think the first area that I would like to comment on is collaboration. I believe in Ghana we have IT experts that we have people who are capable of building the national repository for almost all the institutions in Ghana, but the problem is collaboration. My first question is, do we have in place a framework that in Ghana that to aid us in implementing this system that we're talking about? If yes, how do we ensure the smooth implementation? And if no, how do we come up with a national framework that to aid us in implementing this system? And my second question is, how do we leverage on the open source application as institutions? Because I believe strongly there are open source applications that we can build on based on to implement these systems. Example, open journal system and also DSpace. So I would like to know if we can leverage on the existing open source application if we lack funding to also go a long way in solving our problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. My name is Solomon Kutiame. I'm into technical IT services. I'm also into academia, publishing some articles. I've been researching on enhancing algorithms to, detect patterns of coronary heart disease. In my search, or in my research, I have realized that even though we have hospital like Kolebu in Ghana, we don't have data. When you are looking for something, you are researching on anything, you realize that you don't have data from Ghana. So, mine is not a question, but I want to use this opportunity to appeal to decision makers, policy makers, so that we actually build this infrastructure. So that when we go online to conduct some research, we will have Ghana data to work with. Thank you.
Much for the questions. The first person wanted to know, he wanted us to create a platform for technicians, and that report, and probably a very good point. What should go into the repository, but the technicians, you really do the job, and your inputs are very important. So I will support it any day that you create your platform, and once in a while you provide this your reports, technical reports into this platform. And why not? You can have an in-house repository and an external one. Maybe the one that goes outside, you may not have to share that, but amongst you as technicians from various universities, you can share that. So it's a brilliant suggestion, because there are great guys amongst you that we need your expertise. Then there was issue about cyber security. You are best placed. If you come to cyber security, I'm not there. I think we need to, I am into content management. So you need to really ensure that we take the necessary steps to protect our network. I think the issue now is that because we don't have enough, people are not too interested in hacking and attacking our systems. But as we begin to develop our networks and build on our data and become attractive, the attention will turn here and you have that challenge. So let's start now before we get worse. Then the issue about national framework, it comes down to what I've just said. That is not there. But what is there now, GARNET is there, is an opportunity for us to collaborate. That's why we are here. The structure is such that 40 or 40 plus universities are represented. We are here. Is an example. We in the library also have the consortium of library and academic library research. That's why GARNET and Kali are collaborating. So I think there's some attempt, some framework is not there, but we need to build on it and also bring in even other stakeholders. Some of the UTAC and others who are also our stakeholders, we can also collaborate, invite them to our meetings and ensure that we talk about these things as well. Yes, please, I am an advocate for open source software. We don't have the money to buy software. And those who have been buying, they are changing. I know Kofi Annan Library, for instance, they bought a very expensive software for them, for their library management. Now they can afford to maintain it. They have gone to Koa. So even those who had the support to buy software, they can sustain it. So I think let's look at building capacity for, can we say all Ghanaian universities can use Koa? Koa is just good at any other proprietary software. This space, these things are good enough. So it's about us sitting down and agreeing that let's go this way, let's customize them, let's have the support, internal support within and outside, and we're good to go. So I support that too as well. Then the issue about searching, that one was an advice actually, but I want to comment on it. Yes, you are right, because of what I said. It's not an issue of us not having research output on whatever area you were talking about. It is there, but there's no web presence. That's the issue. You go to the libraries and let them begin to search their theses and they will have them, but there's no web presence. So we need to bring these things out. Within a week ago, I had a call from a vice chancellor in a Nigerian university, and he said somebody has submitted a paper published in the UCC journal for promotion, and they have searched the web, they can't see the journal. He wants me to, if it's there, I should send it or put it in the repository they can see. We have to quickly go and look for the journal and scan it and put it in a repository. And I saw, he sent me a mail, a vice chancellor, thanking me that they have seen it now. That is how bad it is. I was just talking about Jobo's book that some journal wants. We can get it. So it's an issue. If you like, it's even a national security issue. Let me say it that way. Look, it's that bad. Somebody wants a simple document, you can't get it. So we need to be conscious about this. Thank you.
All right, so just a few comments on what he mentioned. I think the first one was about the memo. I like to be very specific when most of us here are technical people. You are not expecting your vice chancellor, your registrar, to know how to automate these processes. These things come from you, the technical people. That's always the problem. We are waiting for big men to tell us that, you guys, you know what, develop a system that would allow us to do 1 or 2 automations. But that's not going to happen. As you've seen, and those of you who have been in the universities for 10, 15 years, it hasn't happened. It wouldn't. Unless you take the initiative at your level and demonstrate it and take it upstairs and say that this is what I've started with. Now I need this additional support to be able to do it. This is the practical way to do it. And for the few systems that we have in our institutions, you check, you will see that that's how it started. Sometimes it starts from a student project, and then it's taken up at the IT level, and then later on becomes the system that we use in our, for the institutions. So unless we begin, as those of us here, to practicalize the things that we do, it's not going to happen. And normally, so let me start with the memo. You write the memo on in Word, and then you print it out of the Word. Then you go and give it to whoever you're giving it to. If by the time you get there, you've already missed the process. And then after the person has read the thing and probably archived it into some physical space, you now want to digitize it and someone can read it. No. So what you need is a process of submission of memo, digitized from the beginning. So the document must be born digital. The idea of scanning documents for them to become part, that's when it's already late. But today, if you are submitting a memo, it should start from the beginning digital. Then the system doesn't have a choice but to keep it somewhere. The reason why we archive is for the sole purpose of retrieving. So once the documents get into the system, then we worry very little about retrieving it. So for technical people manning the various sections in your universities, start the process. Digitization is in 3 phases. The first one is the general automation at your level. The second one is when you try to let someone remotely access it at the enterprise level. The third level is when you innovate. It's 3 stages. So it's not going, I can't see your records in your institution if you yourself have not digitized it. So that job is not, it's not about the VCs. Maybe they can start it, but they're not going to do it unless you do it and show it. And when VC was speaking, you heard she's a medic. Her training and her processes are not like the way yours are. So unless you go and show it to her, she's not going to immediately process that information the way you do it. So begin to do it yourself. I think someone mentioned about digital cybersecurity. GARNET will come as far as your beginning of your network. And you are part of the integrated system. So it means that certain basic things must be done at your level. And then GARNET will take it up from there onwards. So because GARNET does not get into your local network, I think that's why all this training is going on. And with the hope that your local network must be secured and all the tools are available. One of the things that I think my senior colleague mentioned is the fact that, okay, let me say it in my own words. I think we talk too much about things. We make it look like we don't have the solution. Solutions that we are looking for, they've been here many years ago. Those of you who are very much aware, Ghana was one of the first places in Africa that received the undersea cable. I think 35 years ago. 35 years later, we're now starting as if everything is new. I remember when I was in Geneva, a Ghanaian was given an award for advocacy in open access. That's about 15 years ago, maybe 20. 20 years later, we are still discussing how to do this, something that we have done it already. So please, the point I'm trying to make is that if we are going to wait for some other people to do it for us, it's not going to happen. Start at your level and take it upstairs. And I can assure you, there's no Ghanaian vice chancellor that you send such a piece of thing to, he's going to reject it, because they are aware. And if you heard her speech, she says she's aware, but she has challenges. So before she decides that she's going to accept what you're doing, you have to show it. And so that's the point I want to make for those who are technical and trying to do some of these things. I think there was one about data. So the gentleman about data. Health data is very difficult to manage because it has human subjects and many things, there are policies in it. But especially in Ghana, I think that even if we don't come out with any policy, the next 400 years, the policies that we have are enough. We have everything. If you read our Data Protection Act, all the details are there. The tools that we need to use to build them, they are there. The local infrastructure to do them, we have it. See, the thing about digitization is not about computerization and internet. Internet is the last part. So I hope I'm not talking too much. Yeah. So this is the conceptualization. When you have an idea, you can decide to inscribe it or characterize what you have, like characters, and you can inscribe them on stone, like our great-grandfathers did. Or you can put it on a paper, or a magnetic strip, or a hard drive. At that level, it's with you. Internet and those things come in when you want access, when you want someone remotely to access it. But before they can access it, the form of the data must be such that someone else can access it. So don't wait till all the infrastructure has come before. If the thing is in Word, put it in Excel. If it's in Excel, you can go to Access. If it's in Access, you can do some bigger database. If you get the database right and things go, you can pass it over the network. These are all layers that you have to deal with. So as network leaders in your institutions, just do the things based on the resources that you have. And I can assure you, most of the challenges that you have, half of them, if not more, can be addressed without this additional money. Now, the last part I want to mention about the collaboration. Let's say that when you subscribe to a publication journal, the base money for a person is, say, 5 cedis. 5. And each subscription is, say, 1 additional cedi. So, for example, if you have 10 institutions and they want to subscribe to one document or one paper, they can pay just 1 5 cedi, and then a few more people can pay this additional one. So when you come together as a group, for 10 institutions doing let's say one subscription, instead of paying maybe 50 cedis, you pay, even if you pay the 50 cedis, you can have 45 subscriptions on it. If it's 100 institutions, you can have 450 subscriptions. If you are doing maybe 10 more subscriptions, you can get 4,000 subscriptions for free because you came together. I don't know whether you get the math, the logic. So when we come together as a team, as institutions that are working together, pricing becomes lower, and we can use that money for the other infrastructure that we are looking for. Some of the so-called big institutions have spent some money to build infrastructure. I think last time I mentioned it. If you take institutions like KNUST, we have a 20 million setup for data center. It can host all the institutions that are here, that place. And the same power is there. So if, for example, you can buy your own, let's say, your rack and go and put it in that space, but you don't have to pay for the power, because the power comes once to manage the whole place. So we have to begin to see how some of your infrastructure can be localized. It will reduce your bandwidth cost, when you manage the traffic and the rest. So maybe as we continue in Garnet, we have to begin, like we've been saying, to do the collaboration. But we talk too much. If you want to do it today, you can pick a phone and call your other IT colleague, schedule a meeting on Monday to go and see the other person's vice chancellor and start the process. And I can assure you most of these things will work. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. All that has been said makes very good sense. Now, I come back to the gentleman who made mention about technical reports. A few years ago, digital object identifiers were limited to specific spaces. Now we are in that space of digital publications and infrastructure that is enhanced in such a way that it has expanded the scope where several items can be properly digitally identified from codes that we write. So now you can register a code to yourself. The young man who mentioned that he's working on algorithms. You talk about your frustrations from accessing data. How many of your codes that you have written have you made it available to everybody? This is a shared environment. The digital environment makes access easier if we all collaborate. We need to share what we generate at our level. The challenges we have with our infrastructure can be offset by innovating the processes. I don't need to have a paid-for platform to share my information. I can use Google Drive to share as much as I want. If I can't host, if I don't have the infrastructure in-house to host anything, I generate, like Prof. Yonchi just said, turn your Word documents into into Excel, load it up either on InfoPath or on Access, hold it up on a Google Drive, and then share the links. People get access to it. If you are working on algorithms on pulmonary issues, because when neural networks started, it was more about identifying just simple images and then the enhancement of images as a way. Now it has moved beyond that, adopting natural language. If you go data, for example, previously you take a paper and the data looks so abstract because you don't have access to it. Now there are several platforms publishing the data. If you go to Nature publications of Springer, they have a whole platform for data. And their PubMed, for example, has one. The idea, what I'm trying to say is that as we move on, one of the major challenges of the digital space is an open sharing of information. If we don't share what we already know, we will not learn more. As you share, you get challenged. And as you get challenged, you learn. And this is very key. And as you learn, you have the opportunity to innovate. For example, using the Google platform. Where initially when information started, Google started, before Google there was Encarta, which came on a CD, and then you had to search. And then Encarta left the scene, Yahoo came on board, and then now we have Google. There are other platforms that are free. There are several publishing outlets there that are also open to us as Ghanaians. Not everything we have to pay for. Technical reports can be made available. Jacob is not here. He's one innovative young man, built a network in our office and put on board an intranet upon which we could then build or load up whatever information we had within the NCT at that time. Eventually, NITA came up, and NITA has what we call the e-workspace. Who has used the e-workspace recently? Who is on e-workspace here? Really, we are not on it. Please, let's try and get on. It has a plethora of opportunities available to us, which does not require us to build the infrastructure internally ourselves. Memos, platforms are there, loading up information, sharing information across board. As I sit here, because of being on that e-workspace, I virtually have access to almost every single government worker's email. I can send an email across the whole public space without necessarily knowing the person, but I can contact the institution by just using their subdomain address and everything. Point is this: the digital space provides us that opportunity, but the biggest challenge is what Doctor said: our data, the speed, bandwidth. And as we discuss as technicians and as experts and professionals in the digital space, one thing we have to communicate, and I know that, yes, we don't have to wait for our vice chancellors, but one thing we have to communicate to our vice chancellors is the need to recognize that we need to enhance access in terms of bandwidth, speed, capacity. We can have all this. I want to access Google. If it takes me 20 hours to open, I think in 1999, 1990, it could take you almost, on the dial-up system, it could take you 1 hour to get to Yahoo. Now you run a pink trace to just Google, and it takes less than 30 seconds, and you've hit it. You've hit their server in New York. So if we improve on our bandwidth access, a lot of these things that we are seeing as challenges would now become more of just, should I say steps that we just have to, or hurdles we just have to jump over. All you need are long legs, and the long legs is the data bandwidth. Thank you.
Let me just... Prof mentioned something that was very profound, and I just totally agree with him. And I wanted to emphasize that because of even a situation I had just yesterday about policies. Policies are there, but they are not known sometimes. Sometimes instead of revising existing policy, we start new ones. And a whole lot of cycle of repetition. When we are done with a new policy, then we shelve the policy. Nobody knows about the policy. Another after 5 years, we need to do this policy. Yesterday, for instance, management wrote to us to develop a policy for website management. Then I said, no, this policy should actually be part of the ICT policy. If they want anything, it should rather be an operational manual on us to manage the university website. So I said, why do we have an ICT policy and still have a policy for website management? If you talk about an operational manual on how to manage, which is coming from the policy, I agree. So I want to mention that, yes, this issue about policies, let's bring out all the policies that are in our universities, and let's also make them visible. They should be on our local platform so that we know so that we can track them. If some of them are obsolete, it's okay to review them. You understand? And when we review them, let's communicate the revised policies to the people so that people know this is the policy. You ask people, I don't know this is there. I don't know this is there. And it's a problem. So I think there's something about policy that is missing. And again, let's have template policies. I mean, most of our universities do the same things. So if, for instance, there's an institutional repository policy at UG, a few things will not be the same. That template can be shared. Then we just customize things to meet our need. So that we start wasting time 1 year, one policy is being developed. Another policy, we are still at the policy stage. So I agree with Prof. Thank you very much for that point.
Sorry. So I've just been informed through my network that the e-platform, the e-workspace that I spoke about just now, Ministry of Education is in discussions with the GTech, and very soon all the universities will have access to it. And you'll begin to enjoy the goodness of that innovation. So just hold yourself in readiness for it.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, suggestions, contributions?
Yes, I want to talk about two things and then a question. Okay. I think one challenge we have when we talk about collaboration is some kind of selfishness, for lack of a better word. A lot of the times, it looks like people feel more powerful in keeping things to themselves. So we feel like if I know something and another person doesn't know it, that makes me higher than the person. And so things that we are able to discover, we keep it to us. One of the challenges I have is the burden of being able to share what I know. And so, for instance, since I joined, I'm looking for an opportunity that provides a network for we, the technical guys, to share knowledge. There may be a problem that people are dealing with in various institutions, but someone has figured it out. If you share that knowledge, it means other institutions don't have to struggle trying to solve the same problem. So every one of us is doing all kinds of wonderful things, but we feel like knowing it just alone makes you better than others. And so we keep things to ourselves. So I think that we need to, going forward, find ways that we can share knowledge and do more collaboration. I think that is going to help us. The other challenge that I want to look at, Professor Yurenchi talked about it, about using the example of memos. A lot of the time, our institutions talk digitization because they see the benefits that other people are driving from it. But sometimes it looks like we are not ready to do the necessary changes that will allow us to take advantage of it. If you look at for instance, the issue of digitizing the process of memos and things, I find it difficult to understand why today we still would print a document or a memo, share it on WhatsApp to the various groups in our institutions, and yet print over 200 copies of the same memo, and someone is employed to go around to share it to people. Even in some cases, you will find that the same memo is going to an office that everyone needs to have a copy of. And if there are 20 people in that office, they will print 20 copies of that document and share it to the 20 people. I don't see how that makes sense today. Waste of paper, waste of toner, a lot of printers to manage. It's a big, but you can just digitize the process. And I remember that when I went to ATU initially, that was the first thing that hit me. And then I said, why can't we digitize the process so that we have a memo that starts digital, and then everyone who needs to approve any part of it, the trail goes from place to place, and the person does whatever they need to do. Then it moves to the next stage. You can have triggers that allow someone to be alerted if someone who needs to follow up on that memo is not. And then when it gets to a last location, if you actually need a hard copy of it for whatever reason, at that point you can print it. So you don't even need to do a PDF or Word document, print it, and later on scan it to keep it. And no one was ready to listen to it. It looks like they are so comfortable with the idea of having to print paper and move it around. So I deployed an open source solution. I tested it, we did everything. And then eventually we had to shelve it because no one was ready to move from the paper documents that we have around. They wanted to retain the paper. So with something like this, right from the beginning, I have gotten the impression that the system is not really ready for change. So I wouldn't even waste my time trying to look for other ways of innovating things. So I think that our special universities, and one of the first things I heard when I heard a speech from my VC when I went to the institution is that the universities are slow to change. So it's like we have become comfortable with it. The fact that we are universities, we will have meetings and seminars and all kinds of things just to make a decision on a small thing. So something that you can just have two people discuss and we say, okay, this is fine, let's go along with it. It takes like 3 years. It takes a long time. We form a committee, we write reports, and then we shelve it. And nothing really changes. So I think that our institutions also need to help us. The digital environment is a very fast process. If something comes up and you don't pick on it early, within a short time, it becomes old. And by the time you are spending more time trying to apply something that was discovered 3 years ago, the system has gone beyond what it is now. That by the time you apply it, you are already outdated. It's the same effect as if you didn't do it. So I think our institutions also need to understand that the process of digitization needs to come with them being ready to change and to adopt. Otherwise, all the effort that we are putting in would be useless, or it will not get us anywhere.
All right.
The final one is a follow-up to a question I've asked this 3 years ago at another AGM. Is it not possible for us to come to start thinking of having a kind of framework that would drive convergence and unification in our infrastructures? So you would realize that all of us have the same needs because we are similar institutions. But every institution, when you go, you realize that the IT infrastructure they have is different in one way or the other. Some have some systems, some don't have. Is it not time for us to have a framework that allows us to define some kind of a template environment so that every institution knows that, okay, this is where we are, but we need to aspire to get to a point where we have this system working this way, this system working this way. It becomes easier for us to be able to pick a solution somewhere and then apply it somewhere else. Or it becomes easier for us to know where we are and where we are going, so that it's not just as if ICT people just like buying fancy things. we need to get
which
to that
which they
point.
do, isn't it? They do, isn't it? They do, isn't it?
That's how the environment is. The the fancy thing comes with more features and a lot of other things that is beneficial. But then once you have that framework, it's no longer about what the technical person thinks. You are unifying it with the needs and value propositions that the institutions want. So that we know that this is what the institutions need. And so based on that, we have developed this framework that if we finally implement it, it will help in the kind of value that we are trying to achieve. So that everybody aspires to get there. So that it's not like someone, that way it becomes easier to convince your institution about what investment needs to be done. So if someone is doing something else and someone is not doing it, when you are talking about doing it, the idea is that, oh, they have money, that's how they can do it. It's not really because you need it. So when we also get money, then we can think about doing it. So I think that it's high time we start looking at this. I think it will help with the technical people in terms of communicating our value to the institutions.
All right, just a small response to what you said. See, as you can see, I'm a very practical person. You join the university. I'm just addressing what you join the university. You have this nice idea, but somehow you assume that because it's a good idea, everybody should accept it. In technology, that does not happen. When you come out with an idea, minimum time of acceptance is 5 years. So sometimes you have to know the problem that you have so you can address it. So don't assume that you have this digitization, platform. So you want the university to change today and use it because it is good. That's why probably it didn't work. There are processes that you have to take your idea through, not talking. At least in the university, you have to write. Whilst people are talking, let your document go through the process. And I can assure you, in our case, when the letter comes from academic board, everyone keeps quiet. Professors, vice chancellors, everybody will keep quiet because academic board has what? Approved it. So take your document through the process and let it become policy or some form of, acceptable requirement. Then it will be done. Most of the things that some of us have done in our universities, that's how it happens. I used to call them white papers. Every week I wrote one. So I write it, and the leaders, there are not many. Head, dean, provost, academic board secretary, you see, there are about 4 or 5. You convince these 5 categories, and the thing gets there, your system would start working. It's a practical way to, and I know your frustration that you've read about it. You've seen how the thing works. It will solve all the problems, but it wouldn't. Fiber optics, when the scientists first figured it out, mostly in Europe, it took them 10 years to convince the European government that fiber optics is better than copper. When they agreed, they decided before they would accept it, unless they send you to places like here, so that now allow them to replace the radios that they had in the copper with the fiber. 10 years. But everyone knows what fiber is. It was that time, even now it's more. It was 10 times faster, whatever 10 times, what it was like that. But nobody would accept it because it was new. So as technology people, when you dream in your room and you get the idea, let the dream go through the process. And then when the process accepts it, they would accept the idea that you have. Thank you very much.
Senior, you see, I think another challenge, VC wants to talk. Okay. Yes, sometimes for us technicians, we have the ideas sitting in our heads. We know how to implement it. Most times, I think one other challenge we have is communicating it. So I know how this computer works. very well. I can take it apart and put it together. Ask me to teach a general person, just a user, an end user person, on how this works. Last time I was trying to explain to my boss that this is a home edition, and it took me almost 30 minutes trying to make sense. Maybe Garnet should consider, as part of going forward, training and enhancing the capacity, the administration and communication of innovation. This is very critical, because if I don't understand what you know, it makes it difficult for me to accept it. Once we are able to communicate properly that this is the innovation I have come up with, these are the ways, and for universities, they work with paper. It's sadly the truth. And so, you see, you talk about framework, and a colleague came in and said they'll set up a committee. Yes, you've come up with an innovation, you write it and send it to the VC to the best of your abilities in your limited communication way regarding innovation. And the VC will look at it and go like, registrar, yenti committee, na omunsha branti yadi. That committee sits down, looks at it, calls you, and then you go in, and what do? You are going to talk technicalities. So you stand up there, you talk about what? A node, and you talk about servers, and they are sitting there and they are looking at you. And if you cry, you use servers, that is very good. Some of you will use technical boxes, and then you throw them away, cry. So by the time you finish your presentation, to you, I went there. I wowed them. In fact, I spoke for 1 hour. One kashi. So, CEO, please, maybe next year, we should look at training ourselves on how to communicate our ideas, so that the powers that be who don't speak technicalities will now be able to appreciate the technicalities, because we would then learn their language and write English for them. So that's one thing we have to look at. The other part is about the knowledge sharing. Why should you hold on to it? When I finished my dissertation, I worked on optimization systems in complex innovation networks, on how to come up with best ways of letting information flow. For example, you take, naturally, funding comes into innovation systems through the lead actors. This trickles down through what we call percolation lines, that is the lines of least resistance, to the basic substructures or sub-networks of it, and this creates a multi-level network system of innovation. Now, I was trying to find a way of optimizing the flow rate of information and directives within such multi-level or multiplexes. See, that's it. Now, guess what? I couldn't get the code right. I was trying to use MATLAB. I suck at it. So somebody says use Octave. It's similar. I couldn't get it done. So I wrote an email on Stackflow and some of these platforms, and I got a hit in Indonesia. I sent my numerical deductions to them in the hope that they would not steal it. And 3 months later, I get a code from a group of people I have never met. Eventually, I did go and meet them. And then I ran the code, and it works. Particle swarm optimization. You that you're working on, algorithms. You probably will be working with some of these things, search algorithms, the predictive algorithms. When you get down to it, somebody wrote it, then shared it. So please don't keep it in your head. When you have information and you keep it to yourself, you have not generated knowledge. Our job as technical people is to facilitate the knowledge generation platform and process. So don't be selfish, share it. Let it flow. And Mohammed was my friend. We went to school together. And he went to times to get help on some of my quotes. Because, look, he was a student, I'm a PhD student, but I went down to him and asked for help. Share the information and let us all grow together. We are here, are we not sharing? Exactly. So why be selfish? So please, those of you who think that you are being relevant by keeping the information, well, you only know it, so you are alone. Me, I'll share the little I have. And guess what? People would think Kwabena knows. Meanwhile, Kwabena knows very little. But because I'm always sharing the little I know, perception is that Kwabena knows a lot. And everybody will keep reference, oh, I learned this from Kwabena. I learned this from this. I learned this from this. And it will spread. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I have a few comments before I finally leave you. I wanted to stay and feel the spirit of the discussion and whatever is going on. So first of all, the presentation, thank you very much for the insight. I just wish to draw attention that as much as we are looking for open access, you know, some of us faculty, we don't have money to pay for open access. So you submit the journal as a standard submission. And it comes with some restrictions. So when the paper comes out, for some of them a year or two, you are not allowed to have it on open access platforms. So let's remember the ethical issues in terms of these things. I like the way you projected UCC as a part of the 320 ranking. That's very good. The other universities, can we also copy from them? So for example, UHAS, we are the first in SDD3. Our PowerPoint is also the same. ICT director, can you copy from your colleague and do something? But my substantial issues are just two. One is, as much as you communicate, as much as you show, don't forget the cost implications, the budgets. So yesterday we had senior management meeting, and ICT people, some of them came to present some, paper. And I sent them back that they should go and give me the cost implications. So what is happening now, and what do you want to innovate, and how much will I be saving for the university? I think this will make me support your idea faster. And then, what about facing? So you know that you go all out and say 1 million. If I look at the way the thing is structured, can we do a phase 1, a phase 2, a phase 3, even a phase 4? If you are able to come up clearly and structure your innovations such that we can pilot this, we can roll it out this way, and so the person who is approving will not feel, I told you that the pocket is kind of empty already. So we are kind of prioritizing based on how convincing, how important it is. So everybody's demand is important. But if yours come and it is something that, ooh, I find it's easy, let's go ahead. Another thing that I picked from the discussion is that, yes, you are technical people, but you are with us every day. So speak our language so that we can flow together. Meaning that, so let me compare this to the national football team. They go out there to the World Cup, the Africa Cup of Nations, and they win as Ghana. So based on what our colleague just said, you win as ICT Ghana, not as UCC, UHAS, KNEST. So I am suggesting that look at it that way, that the world will look at Ghana technical team as experts, rather than UCC is number 1, UHAS is number 50, and KNEA says number 100. Well, let's look at it together. You want to be number 1 because you are the first one. Don't worry, you'll be number 100 because you are not helping us to grow together. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is that let's be strong together, and that will be a better deal. However, I gave 500,000 to Prof. Tego to do something, and we have it at UHAS, okay? And you want to share. I think that the ICT team should make a case to their management that, to be fair, even though we cannot pay the 500,000, let's at least 50,000, 150. Everybody who wants to share in the booty should contribute something. So in that spirit of the people who did the original work also benefiting, I told you about motivation. So as we have that idea that we are sharing in context, knowing that we all have to contribute to the initial developer so people can be motivated to do more. The last thing is that, unfortunately for you, your domain is the fastest growing. So if you keep holding on to what you have, there will be no space in your hand to grab the new things that are coming. If you leave it, you feel your hands empty, so you want to find out new things, new ideas, new things that are happening. So let's look ahead, 50 years to come, 100 years to come, the day you are retiring. I like giving keynote addresses, not that I like, people like inviting me. So last time I was struggling because I didn't have time to write. So I called a colleague. I said, oh, you give me the topic. I'll put it into the... I said, what are you talking about? I didn't know that there was a platform that can... Anyway, whatever it is, we crossed that bridge. I didn't know. Of all my two no, I didn't know that the world has moved on. So your area, unfortunately, is the fastest growing. And as you let what you have go, you will be moved because your hands are empty to get new ideas and connect more. However, I also just caution that we need to strengthen our system so that our efforts will not be in vain. If you do all that you can, then the system is hacked and the system collapses. What have you achieved? So as we bring in the innovations and everything, how do we ensure that 10 years, this system that you have created for us to have that intranet or whatever system, we can still hold on to it? So on this note, I wish you well again, and now I can comfortably leave so that you can continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, VC.
Yeah, moderator, just a small one on the issue of resistance to change. Just to support what Professor said, probably the procedure, the approach you use is very important. Like Professor said, you need to develop a proposal, speak to it, defend it, let it go through the process. And that even has repercussion on your promotion. Because if that proposal goes through, is accepted, since you are not purely academic, that can even count on your promotion. And I didn't like the aspect that because of that, you have given up. You don't have to give up in this environment. Sometimes you bring a proposal, it's kicked out. Another day, it will find grounds. So you never give up. When it comes to resistance to change, we have talked about the communication aspect. That's true. If you don't communicate your vision well. But what you should understand is that when people have vested interest, especially if you come to financial interest, and I'm talking out of experience. You want to stop something, somebody is profiting from it. Somebody supplies papers to the university, and that's where he makes his living. Then you want to stop use of paper to digital. They will fight you. They will get money from the supplier and fight you. And it's not going to be easy. It's not a small fight. So you really need the policies, the top people to back you to succeed. Because half of those people, they have money. I supply paper to KUST, to UCC. That's big business. When they start this thing, I'll lose my business. You invest any money and fight you. So it's not a small fight. Those fights, they are not small. So please, those fights, you need to really be strategic. So that's the point I want to make. That sometimes it's about people thinking about losing their income because of your policy. So don't give up. Just follow the procedure. After all, if you have done a proposal and they have not implemented it, it's on record that you have done something. Thank you very much.
Okay. Good morning. I think so far as digitization is concerned, HTU has done a number of works over there, so I can comfortably share. The issue is not only about technology, but digitization sits in the environment, in the corporate environment. One of our main partners that we need to consider is the internal audit or the audit agency in general. Because everything that you do, we need to be in line with the compliance regime. And I'm happy a compliance man is here. And that is the most difficult hurdle to cross. If you do not sing the music according to their tune, you may be in trouble. So you need to engage them from the very beginning and manage to get their buy-in. That way, you can be in a comfortable lead. Again, it also has to do with finances. So you would have to engage your finance people and let them buy in from the very beginning before you can make a good progress. Without that, you will find it a bit tough to implement digitization. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, thank you. My name is Mohammed Daniel from GCTU. And Doug, thank you so much for the compliment. And I also thank you for your advice back days in school. Thank you so much. So many things has been said. For me, I'm a technical person. And we, the technicians, I know this cut across all the universities, even if it's not all, about 80 or 90%. You know, as Prof said, that our proposals need to go through processes. That's fine. We do that. But at times, we need basic things to make sure that systems function. Let's say, for example, in my data center, let me use my case as an example. My data center, I had an issue with my AC. And let's look at the cost of one AC against a cost of one server. When a server goes down, the cost of it can even buy 2, 3, or 4 ACs. Immediately, I made a request for replacement. I was told that because I didn't capture it in the budget, thank you, I should go back to go and review my budget, else it wouldn't work. And for me, because what I did was, because I want to save the institution, if I look at the cost of my data center against one AC, the best thing is what? Is to save the institution for bearing the cost of everything in the data center. So the best thing I did was, the following day, I shut down the network. Early morning, I was called, registrar called me. Mohammed, I have online meeting and there's no internet. I did ABCD because of so and so. He said, no, you can't do that. So immediately he asked me to go to the data center for him to see what is happening. I took him there. Whilst we were there, I was explaining things to him. The Pro VC joined. And then trust me, in less than 30 minutes, 2 air conditioning instead of 1, 2 air conditioning were brought to be fixed at the data center. So, Prof, not that we don't go through this process, we do. But some at times, these small things to make systems work is very, very important. By the time you wait for it to go through all these processes and get to the management level for an approval, okay, a great harm will be caused. And then secondly, what I also notice is that if in quote, we can do away with office politics. It will help us. Because at times, your document will get to section A, and because maybe you have a small misunderstanding, not a misunderstanding, okay, maybe you didn't meet somebody request in one way or the other, Prof, your document will end up somewhere. The only thing that the person will tell that, oh, I didn't see it. I haven't received anything like that. So if we can do away with office politics and be professional, I think it will help us. Thank you.
Yeah. Just a quick response. I like the direct responses. Then you can continue. The last one about the office politics, it won't go away. So forget it. But the solution is about making sure that the process is transparent. And well, you see, I keep on emphasizing on it. You haven't automated the process of submission of your document. So I'll give you a typical example. Recently, we automated our thesis processing. I'm not talking about upload. It's a 1,200 state submission process. If those of you understand that, it means that there are 1,200 possible states the document will go to. We captured all of them. At any point in time, the stakeholders, students, faculties, lecturers, everyone will get notification of where it has reached. When you set up those transparent processes, it makes it difficult for the office politics to function the way it functions now. He can't say he hasn't seen it because there's enough evidence that he has seen it. That's why I've been coming to you, technical people, on some of the issues. Your first part of your question, you were lucky that the gentleman had a Zoom meeting. I had an incident a long time ago. There was a power out at one part of a building. So I go to my provost to go and complain to get the thing resolved. And he was on his way from his office to his personal office. And I said, Prof, where are you going? He said, oh, there's power in my office. So I'm going to work from there. And we were out for about a month. So you were lucky. But I think the challenge is that you didn't have a proper IT planning process. That's why. The question that they ask you that, did you capture it in your, the equipment that are in your, don't worry about money. Capture it in your documents that these are the items that you would need. It's in your budget. When the time comes, at least they won't use that against you. But when you don't have it in your planning, I'm coming. When you plan, you take care of some of these emergencies in your planning as well. So this is for all of you. And I'm speaking from experience from the university. When it matters most, where university is figuring out where to find the money, they will use things like that against you. But when you have all that covered, then you will limit the issues like this. So everyone here, if you are in charge of your IT, have proper budgetary planning process so that when these emergencies come, you wouldn't have to go through what Mohammed went through. So thank you very much.
I'm Edwin from UPSA. I just want to talk about two things, and the gentleman here had to do with assistance of innovation, ideas, I'm talking about digitization, etc. There is a date I'll never forget, which is hello. Yeah, 16th. Is it okay? In the middle. Okay, so 16th March 2020. That's the day that all schools were asked to shut down because of COVID. And 2 weeks after, we had lockdown. Just an experience of, Prof mentioned at least 5 years okay, for technology, innovation, etc., to be accepted here. What technical people sometimes we think too technical, we are too technical, that we forget technology itself, IT itself, operates in a certain theoretical environment. But when we start the practice, it's like we become so technical, we forget about the theory aspect. UPSA somewhere 2009, this is just an experience, 2009, we started exploring, I led a team to explore learning management platform, specifically Model. We wrote a number of proposals. Nobody was really interested. That's 2009. Somewhere along the line, what we did is to look for what we call champions, specific HODs, individual lecturers who were interested. So we took them through training, and they were using it. We wrote proposal to make it mandatory, etc. Because we had started a weekend school, we thought we could use it to supplement their teaching and learning. It was not until 3 days to, we knew we were going to close down the universities, I think on Thursday to the Monday. So that will be somewhere on the 13th. Okay. Within 2 days, we migrated all courses, not just that particular semester, the other semester to come, because we were not sure what was going to happen. Every content was on the platform, including assignment, etc. That did not start even 2 years earlier. We had started the process 11 years earlier, and it seemed nobody was interested in that. So we don't have to give up. Maybe I could have died somewhere along the line before when we started implementing. But it has come with a lot of benefit. At least we are now being respected. When we write proposals for implementation of new techniques, say, let's start now. We don't know what is going to happen. So for example, within a short space of time, we sent a proposal to discontinue creation of paper records for new students. From next academic year, every student is going to have only e-records throughout the process. And it just received all the attention. And now there's even pressure on us. We wrote a proposal, but some time ago it was not like that. So you don't give up, because you have to understand that it will take some time for your proposals or your implementation, the request to implement new innovation, etc. Like Prof said, at least expect that minimum 5 years before you get the attention. Then one thing I've also observed, because I've been at the university for about 16 years, is that IT people are too technical with their presentations and we need to understand the environment in which we work. And probably we must be the smartest, because the profession is a learning profession. You don't just know one thing and it ends there. So we are supposed to know everything. You mentioned the compliance environment. You need to understand that the reason why the auditor will not let certain things pass, because he's looking at somebody coming from Auditor General to come and ask questions. How come we don't see this receipt? You must also understand that there is a data protection law, there's Electronic Transaction Act, there is Cybersecurity Act, which enables the institution to do completely electronic. But if you don't learn this, if you don't know these things, you'll be shut down. In many cases, maybe the director of finance voice will travel longer than your voice. So when the director of finance says, so we cannot have this because of ABC, to be able to address that. The last thing I'll say has to do with collaboration. Collaboration starts with ourselves. I have a lot of seniors in some university. If I need some, I just ask them. But many of us are quick to run to Indians, to Asians, to get new technologies, because sometimes I don't know if there are any benefit I don't want to talk about, but we need to start the collaboration with ourselves. I want to implement a technology, I need something. Why not go to another institution that you are aware? That's how come we have so many platforms. So for example, UG has UG Space, and I hear some institutions want to use a repository, create repositories. Why don't you go to UG to find what platform are you using to deploy Eugene Space, but you are quick to go to somebody from Asia who is ready to sell you a platform. And those systems, from experience, if you have been around for a long time, at some point we shut them down because there's no continuity. So if you say we are collaborating, let's start with basic things like, I want to get a particular device, which other institutions has it, which institution has been using it, and learn from each other. Sharing is a spirit, and those who share or those who give, they always have more. So you shouldn't feel so special when you are keeping everything to yourself. Thank you.
Well, I wasn't going to say much now because I have a lot to say this afternoon. But something struck me when the VC spoke and when the panel and all these questions and answers coming up. It is the fact that as a country and as a people, we have developed an analog mindset for a long time. So for an analog mindset to change to a digital mindset, there are processes and procedures. So you don't easily give up. I would say I'm one of probably the fortunate people to have worked with the Vice Chancellor who recruited me in 2008, and a CITO who I worked with. Actually, I've worked with 3 CITOs, and I've worked with 4 Vice Chancellors at the University of Ghana. If you understand that your people, or most of your people, are analog, you need to unlock that analog system. Because it's not going to be easy. The fights will be there, the internal politics will be there, the lack of money, all the excuses will be there. But stand on your feet. Because you believe strongly in what you're doing, that will transform lives. This afternoon, we'll be talking a lot more about the UG experience with Sakai Learning Management System, all the challenges and how we have managed to stay alive and stay afloat. But I can assure you that IT people, if you have partnerships within faculty and administration, use them. Create a network of people who really understand what you're doing and work with them. Because if you leave it to the system, you'll be frustrated and you will drop. So look for faculty ambassadors, look for champions, look for even student leadership, and look for management. Because once you get some key people to understand what you're doing and the processes, they will back you up and stand with you. This afternoon we'll be talking about innovation and adoption metrics. Those who will do all the way to, go all the way to frustrate you and disturb you. Just one quick example before I drop. When we, at the University of Ghana, decided to move from paper distance education to electronic, guess who fought me? All the way to my drivers. Because when we go out, they get their per diem. So when we're doing electronic, no per diem. Lecturers will take Ghana Must Go bag and pack questions in and travel. When we're doing online exams, they don't have to travel, and they have to fight you. The printing press, or the presses in Accra that were printing all these modules, for us, will fight you. They will be there. But guess what? When COVID came, everybody was happy that, now we know why you had insisted that we create this learning management system so that we can survive. But we haven't given up. So please, the gentleman who said when he wrote memos and didn't get through, he stopped. No, don't give up. Because in the end, the legacy you leave behind will speak more of you than just dropping the ball. So let's wait for this afternoon, and hope you all come in and we have a lot of interesting ideas. And I'll pick some ideas from you too. So come up with your ideas and we'll see how it goes this afternoon. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, thank you very much. I want to also ask, I think my brother made a submission earlier, and he made reference to a framework of something common that all of us can share. And I am looking at something in relation to standards in infrastructure. And that has to do with, for example, if for those upcoming universities, or in quote, young ones, most of the infrastructure that exists in our senior universities doesn't exist. So we are building up. As we are building in area of, say, servers, routers, switches, and other infrastructure, what must be the common standard? I'm looking at GARNET helping to come at, or let's say, get a standard set of infrastructure that we can all have, so that it doesn't become like what exists here is different from what exists at the other sister universities and institutions. And of course, it comes with funding. I wanted to find out if there could be possible suggestions of other areas of funding, because as a matter of fact, infrastructure costs a lot. And so sometimes you can put up a very brilliant proposal, and you would do all that has to be done to get to the top and is accepted. But because of funding issues, it get dropped or delayed in one way or the other. So if that could be a possible way, guide, or some ideas on how funding can be procured in helping the young institutions be able to achieve a very standardized infrastructure going forward. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Thank you for the opportunity. I have 3 questions to ask. Question number 1 goes to the head of compliance from GTEC. My question is, what is the role of GTEC in bridging the digital gap? According to Dr. Kobler, the challenges that he outlined, I've seen that it's very, very important. He listed digital divide as one of the challenges. And I'd like to know GTEC's role in bridging the digital divide. Then also, I'd like to know, probably from Professor Yurenchi, according to Dr. Kobler, limited internet access is one of the challenges. What is the way forward in resolving that issue, so that bandwidth and other things will be sorted out, because it's too expensive and probably taking off so much money, which is why when the technical team presents a list of items to be bought, we hear all kinds of excuses. Thank you.
You said you had 3, or you've changed your mind?
No, it has to do with funding, but okay. Funding is one of our biggest challenges as young guys in executing our projects and research. When we want to go into research, it becomes increasingly difficult to fund our research projects, data collection, moving here and there to study 1 or 2. It's really difficult challenge. What would be the case as a country, all right, so that when we have innovative ideas, want to do some research, we can easily get funding, rather than going to UN and other international organizations? Is Ghana having something in place for us? Our leaders, you are here. Please help us So help me, answer that question so that we all get a way forward in funding our research. Thank you.
Since I came first, I will try and tackle yours. Come at it first. So, first of all, we must appreciate the role of GTEC. We are a regulatory body. Our main job is to provide that harmonious policy and quality assured working space to facilitate knowledge generation, the learning experience, innovation generation, its adoption and adaptation to suit the higher education space. Towards attaining that vision of a higher education, an improved or efficient higher education system in Ghana. Once you understand this, you would realize that our role in the digital, bridging the digital gap becomes more facilitative. But that aside, over the years, if you have really read or asked questions about the history of GARNET, the inception from 2011, when in the discussions with AAU in Labadi, the creation of WACREN, the setting up of GARNET at that time, and the role NCT and the GTEC has played in becoming one of the major partners of GARNET in getting it to where it has gotten to, you would know that that facilitative role has been well played out. The other part is the one I mentioned about extending and expanding the e-workspace to the universities. GTEC has been playing a very pivotal role in this with Ministry of Education and Ministry of Communication. Maybe some of us may not remember this. We may have been students at that time. But in the Teaching and Learning Innovation Fund between 2004 all the way to 2011, NCT at that time, now GTEC, helped expand training as well as technology access into the universities. If you recall, prior to around 2010, 20, the use of the projectors were not really common in the universities. As part of the proposal the NCT wrote to the World Bank, we were able to provide all this access. As we speak, as part of our quality assurance mechanisms when we are assessing institutions for accreditation, charter, and licensure, we check their digital space, make sure that they align with their libraries, for example, are up to date on the digital platform and the digital world in general. So GTEC, we are doing the best we can. We expect you guys to meet us halfway as well. So now the question is, in your space, what have you done to bridge that digital gap? And what have you done to bridge that digital gap? And what have you done to meet the regulator halfway in building the full bridge, in joining the bridge between the end user and the students, who are our major clients in the higher education space? So, senior, and then why?
All right. I think you mentioned about the bandwidth. Bandwidth is a resource, and like any resource, it needs to be managed and possibly optimized. So the money that you get today is what you have. You just have to find a way to manage it and probably improve on what it can produce. I mean, that's the fundamental thing. One of the reasons why you see some of us deeply involved in GARNET is because of this reason. A lot of the data that you exchange, they're just here. They're not outside of Ghana. If you take your WhatsApp now and say that all the information is there, they all sent by people that you know. And they are here, they're generated from here. But just like in the past, when you wanted to call someone, in Ghana, the person may be in another place, the line used to go to United Kingdom or France before it comes. That's what we are practicing now. Because your connections you don't have the same tabs like GARNET, as many of you may be aware. It was just a solution for people in the scientific community. Internet wasn't, as we know it now, it wasn't meant for other uses. It was just meant for because we need it most. So even if you take Ghana and you try to estimate the consumption, you will see that they are mostly in the universities and the students. We are the ones that consume these things most. So we have to begin to understand the way the traffic works and how you can optimize the processes that are in your institution to bring the utilization down for the same price. Hello? So you got that? Yeah. So I think we have to begin to be smart about how we do our things. Most of you have gone for devices, SIM cards for your registrars and some other key people. You know, instead of making sure that your LAN works and your video calls, sometimes you can call someone within your own campus, but you're using your bandwidth to call someone locally. It doesn't make sense. So begin to implement local solutions that reduces the, how do I put it? It will reduce the amount of money that you spend in your uplink so that you can solve some of the problems. And I think GARNET is one of the ways that I believe we are going to use to address some of our bandwidth. That's just a comment I want to make on what you said. Thank you.
Just to add to what Doc said, apart from in terms of what GTEC does, their presence alone changes things. When you hear GTEC is coming, you see people running header and scatter, and all the things that they don't want to do, they will do. So even your presence alone can change things. So come to us very often. Because anytime we hear GTEC is coming, things will change. Everybody is giddy giddy. You are the police of the university. So yes, okay, I won't tell you. Right. So the issue about the issue about funding, I think sometimes we overemphasize funding in our projects. Sometimes people want to do things, they start with the money. I don't have the money. The money should be the last thing you think about, because you must first have a plan before you think about how to fund it. If you think about the money, you will never ever have a plan. So the money should be the last one. There are things that sometimes we want to do that does not really require money. But because of this mindset of money, I'm saying this out of experience. Last people were saying they want to do something, but they don't have the money. When they finally came up with the budget, most of the things didn't require money after all. So let's not make money. But we can address the money issue with our advocacy and lobbying skills. These are things that we still have to learn. Sometimes some of us don't have any skills in terms of negotiation, in terms of lobbying, in terms of advocacy. These are things that we are not taught in the classroom, but we need them. No, some of what we sit as director of ICT, as university librarian, you don't control anything. You are under the VCs, he's the spending officer, he decides what you should do. So if you don't go and convince him or convince those who matters to buy into what you want to do, it will never be done. Forget it. I know of a colleague who was fighting his VC in recent time. Nothing. Even when his memos go there, he doesn't have feedback, doesn't even have response. Because he has the power. He decides. So we need to really, really intensify. And I'll give an example to this. When I left a very small university, Methodist University, to UCC, a bigger university, and my first assignment was to defend a proposal at the academic board. I mean, nobody knows who is that man. Where did he come? You understand? And you go to academic board with UCC, it's very intimidating. I think you are in a courtroom. The seats are the court. Yes. Then this young man from a small private university is coming with a proposal on something. It wasn't easy. But before I went there, I had lobbied a lot of friends that I had made within the few months that I've taken over. I've lobbied about 6, 7, 4 people that I know from my first meeting were very outspoken. And when I brought my proposal, they were there to support me. It was one of the documents that has gone to academic board in UCC and got approval the first day without any resistance. It still remains on record. because of the approach I adopted. Look, I don't know, those who come to UCC and see what we are doing in the library. A lot of the funding is from outside. It's not from our internal budget. The library was named after Sam Jonah. I've capitalized on that, and I'm on him every day to get money. Since I took over, he has given me over $1 million to support the library projects through lobbying. I'm just trying to say that if you don't have that lobbying skills and you don't know how to advocate, you will never get anywhere. So let's also build on these skills. So one of the training, CEO again, is lobbying, advocacy, and negotiation skills. Let's also train our people on that, apart from the communication. Thank you.
Thank you. My question has to do with institutional repositories. I know the libraries and the librarians across the country have been having some sessions. Yeah. Have been having some sessions. And my concern has to do with the fact that we are all building silos. And I'm wondering how these silos are going to come together. There is a national data center, which we were all supposed to connect to and become the central base for all government data. But some way, somehow, that has not materialized. We are all building our own small data centers and keeping our data private. I want to find out from the librarians if they have any plan of centralizing their data or the institutional repository with the national data center, and each institution has a link in there. So although you may have your local server where you keep localized files, there will be a central base where everything goes to. So tomorrow, if somebody is asking for some document, you know that if you go to this centralized database, you will most likely find it there. So second one has to do with, you mentioned in your presentation that there were about 28 million work from Ghanaians that are sitting, collections that is sitting outside. What is being done is that to get those localized here, copies of those documentations or collections for our local use in Ghana here. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Adamu Mohammed from Sunyani Technical University. It's good. All the contributions on the ground is what we can do for the universities and the institutions. And it seems nothing is being said about condition of service for us. Yes, because I joined the university not long ago, but we are mostly still being seen or referred as technicians, where some of us have been placed. But I don't know, in charge of systems which doesn't sleep. And the challenges we face when I go to the web, 8 to 5, is mostly the normal thing. My network is not up, my PC is down. So we spend most time in these areas. To get some of these things like configuring an open source to work, mostly you have to get time after 5. Mostly you wake up in the night, midnight or so. My network technicians sometimes have to sleep on site. So, condition of service. We are also human beings with needs. But what we do is not the normal things that, forgive me, everybody within the university space does. So, condition of service, we need to be compensated, because honestly speaking, we have few people in that space, few people who can do some of the core work, open source systems, yes, they are there, but honestly speaking, not everybody can configure them, and few people. What is the motivation from our vice chancellors? If we are the heart, indeed, then we need to be treated as like the heart is being treated. Everybody needs the same resources, but you can't deny the heart of certain oxygen, or if you want to give it to other parts of the body. So condition of services, when it goes to the vice chancellors' meetings, they should see us as the heart, indeed, that they've been calling us, or the backbone that they've been calling us. Thank you.
All right, so just on this one, but I think I'll request that my colleague speak to it, or Lucas, you speak to it. This is a labor issue, but I think there have been some attempts along that line. Maybe you would like to speak to it. I don't know. Yeah, please give him the mic.
Thank you very much, Prof. Honestly, I am very happy that this comment is not coming from me, because I was wondering whether we are concerned about ourselves. Thankfully, we have the GTEC rep here. We also have the executive secretary, VCG, here. I happen to be a rep of all the directors in the universities. And together we have, among other things, recognized this as a challenge for our universities. Because the fact is that, as you rightly put it, well, the heart has to be well taken care of to be able to function well. And if I may borrow a Ghana, is it proverb, which goes like, an empty sack cannot stand. Certainly, we have documented all these things and put up chin paper presented through the executive secretary to the VCG to be tabled there, and our hope is that we'll be called to speak to it. So I want to assure you that some steps are being taken by your directors, and we hope that our leaders, the vice chancellors, will see this as very important, and so that they will add their voice to it. And then when it gets to GTEC, our hope is that it will be well recognized, so that what is due us will be given us for us to be encouraged to provide the needed services. I thank you very much.
All right. So just thank you. Just a follow-up on that. It is the way the IT units were originally set up. They were not originally, passed in the way it is now. So even for the older universities, they are now going through, maybe Legon did it much earlier, but they are now going through a restructuring phase. And so you can take a cue from that for internally, whilst they are doing the up-level politics for advocacy. Internally, you have to find, like the same thing we are saying, look for the right people who are interested in what you do, those who go to the academic board for you, and request for restructuring. Restructuring is what is going to help you do that. Normally, like Prof normally say, ask for a visitation. If the IT unit wants to do your own restructuring, most likely it would fail. But there's no external auditing that comes to audit you and then make certain recommendations that you can't function the way you are functioning now. The university might listen. I'm going through this policy because sometimes it is the shortest way to arrive at the answer. You might think it's long, but this policy direction is what causes the change to happen. So we don't forget what my senior mentioned. Yes. The last one, can you remind me again? I think I just missed it. Yes, yes. So I think it was about the repositories that we have, and yes. The first level is what we are doing. You want a situation where you are not disconnected from a central point, because when you have just one thing, it's a single point of failure. So what we are doing now is fine. The repositories are by design such that they are allowed to interoperate. So there are all the repositories that most of us are using, they can communicate among themselves. So the first level is to set up your institutional repositories as you are doing them. Then you go to the next layer where you push your data and sync the other ones down so that when you are disconnected, it's an African solution, because one of these days your power is going to cut. But when you're in the local network, you should still be able to access the cache information. So I don't think it's wrong. What we have to do now is to go and set up a national repository that aggregates everyone to that space. So you can search in your local, search on what has been synced, but you can also go up there and go and search everyone, including documents that the institutions have decided they want to make it open. It can even be memos, whatever, but at the national level, you can have access to all of this. I have personally done this in a few countries where they asked me to go and set up a repository for the country. The UNESCO projects that you heard from me, that was what it was about. And I've done for a number of countries where you set up a national repository where anyone at all can be synced to that repository. And the Library of Congress and the rest, that's what they have done. It's huge because they collect all the data across many disciplines, including ours, so that they can become more powerful. As we know, the more data you have, the more powerful you are. So if, for example, you want to access other libraries external to Ghana, you are paying for it. The worst case is that you are paying with the bandwidth. But when you become powerful in terms of the data that you have, you can now even negotiate and get global funding to support your local infrastructure, because the globe knows that they are benefiting from you. So it only makes sense that we have to set up this infrastructure on top of whatever local ones that we have, so we can have a bargaining power for many of the things that we intend to do. Yes. I think there was another question, if I missed. That one is his business, yes.
Yes, you mentioned your conditions and what is due you. Please, let me take this opportunity to educate us all. Conditions of service for every worker in a government space comes in two folds. There is the internal one and there is the external one. The external one has to do with your salaries, for which government owns that. The internal one deals with your welfare. Each institution determines the strategic structure or operational structure that they want to run and operate. Having determined this, and because it has cost implications, they are expected to run it by the GTEC and get the requisite approval. Once they do this and get the approval for the structures they have, this approval exercise has been ongoing. If VC had not left, she would have confirmed it. We've met almost all the universities in Ghana. We are moving to the colleges of education. Once that structure has been approved, that is the structure for which government shall service on its side. Any other one that is not approved on the GTEC side shall be serviced upon the decision of the institution whether it is efficient for its system or not by its internal processes. So, Senior Kiche, whatever, when it comes down to it and what is due you on government side, you are duly compensated. If you are looking at recognition of your job and the structure by which, or the promotional lines by which you grow, those are institutional systems that must be done and approved at your council level. If you want a generic across-board rank recognition, then you get to Vice Chancellors Ghana. And once they do, then they roll it out within the institutions. So on our side as GTech, if they call you a director, for example, and they have not come to GTech to attain the requisite approval that in UHAS, we want the IT to be a directorate, you will be called your director. You will be paid per what has been approved on the system. If it is a unit, you'll be paid as a unit. Until UHAS comes to GTech to negotiate an approval with the requisite justifications. And it is not a one-size-fits-all. We must appreciate that the convoluted nature of University of Ghana's operational structure is vastly different from UHAS, UMAT, UTAS, UBITS, CK Tedam in UTAS, and then SD Dombo in WA, or even Amstead. This is about lean and efficient management systems. We can't keep running the country the way we've been running it over the years. Efficiency and effectiveness must go hand in hand. So it's not about what I think I should be. It's about the justifications that assure government that value for money is always the benchmark. So I hope and pray that your proposal that you have submitted to the executive secretary is not infused with emotions, but more about objectivity and pragmatism. That tells everybody and every relevant stakeholder that you are credibly situated for whatever you are asking for, and that you align with the strategies of your individual institutions. Proposing a generic structure is fine, but there must be a strategy of populating that structure. If it is missing, then it will become very difficult for the vice chancellors to even accept that, look, UNIMAC is different. Look at the size of the number of students, look at the total population. University of Ghana has over 5,000 workers. UNIMAC has just less than even 500 workers totally. So are you telling us, if your proposal is looking at, if ATU has more workers than UNIMAC, so if you are looking at it, then would that work out on a generic system? So please, when you are developing these proposals, take into consideration, one, the policy space within which we are operating, the lean and efficient systems we all desire to run, and the objectivity and strategic direction you want. If you have satisfied this, I'm very sure, Vice Chancellors, you won't have a challenge convincing them. For us, once a day comes to us, we will move it to finance. And that is where the challenge is. Because if finance hasn't got the money to fund what you desire, well, it's like going to secondary school those days and putting together a nice budget and sending it to your father. See, that's my uncle there, Prof there. It's my uncle. The sister is a very tough one. That's my mother. You do your budget, everything, and go. And they'll cancel everything, and you get a singlet and boxes and sugar and go to school, because that is what is available. So the desire may be there, but we must be very objective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just to add on to what Prof has said about the repository, it's important to mention that CALI, the Consortium of Academic and Research Libraries in Ghana, and GARNET is collaborating on helping the various institutions to develop their capacity on building their repositories. I think what we'll do again is to create that platform. I think Prof was very technical, but as a layman, I'll call it platform. That national platform to make sure that we integrate all the various repositories to have that national resemblance. Then on your question about the 28 million books, I just happened to be on a program at Library of Congress, and as part of the tour, the tour guy was very interested that I was from Ghana. He said, "Oh, we are from Ghana. Let me show you what we have on Ghana." And I was taken to, and these are physical collections, not even electronic. He took me to a place, and I was amazed that they have all the books on Kwame Nkrumah and everything written on Kwame Nkrumah. And I don't know any library in Ghana that has everything about Kwame Nkrumah. They have, I don't know how they call them, honestly. And according to them, they have agents in Ghana. Anytime a book is published, they have a way of getting them. It's their collection, they own it. It's not for us. But under the interlibrary loan and other things, maybe in future, we can reach out to them, have a system of probably collaboration and exchange of what they have. Because I've used that system to get somebody's book for him, but it was a personal thing. I just know somebody there, and because of our relationship, he was able to scan the book and send it to me. But it's just something between the two of us. But I think under our library corporations in future, we may have to have such collaborations so that when we need something that is there, maybe this Jobo book that I'm looking for is even there. So I could have contacted them and there's a way they can send to. So we'll explore that and see. Once those things are there and there are human beings there, I'm sure. Because I'm just looking at the next 10 years. I went there 5 years ago. I'm sure by now they are even around 50 million. And they'll have things that our countries don't have. That's my worry. That they'll have things that we have to go to them for information that we should own. This is because we don't have a national library in Ghana. So there's no institution collecting our publication and books and storing and preserving them. It doesn't exist. That's the challenge. So that's why we are not keeping the books that have been published in this country. They are not there. Nobody's keeping them. So we have to start that conversation too as well. So it's something I will begin to explore, whether there's a way that we can formalize it. Thank you.
I think I want to ask Doc a question. When I was in school in Oslo, I asked for a book. The book was in Oxford. Within 2 weeks, it was posted to me. Can I sit? And when I finished using it after 1 month, it was posted back free of charge to me. Because I had paid my dues and my fees and everything. Well, I was on scholarship, but I had to pay for some student fees, something. But for that whole period, all that cost of the book, everything was free. When I checked online, buying that book would have cost me at that time about £200. So now I ask this question. Can I sit comfortably in University of Ghana and borrow a book from KNUST Library or from your good library in UCC? Yes, I know in TALIF you developed this digital, visual impaired. Yes, you built a whole. Can I sit in University of Ghana and get and borrow some of these tapes, for example?
This is tech, so I have to be careful. So it's yes and no. Yes, because it's possible. We use our relationship. When I started looking for this book for Sam Jonah, I went to BAM. They have the volume 3. And I had to go and borrow that volume 3 when he said he wanted volume 1. So it's possible. But it is not formalized. Maybe if I had not known Theodosia, the librarian there, even me, he gave me a week because it was a reference book. So it is not formalized. So we normally use our relationship. I thought it should be formalized. There should be a system in place. And we've tried that, but I don't know why we've stopped it. At some point, we were trying to do that, formalize. But there were issues about book missing. You send a book, when they are returning, it get missing, and who pays for it? Who pays for the postage? So it's a bit difficult. So I think that it's possible, but it's not a formalized thing. And it all depends on the discretion of the individual librarians. I think it has to be formalized. I agree with you.
The experience that you had, this is very common in Europe because all the European libraries have that understanding, and they have a structure in the payment process when the request is made. So a big place like CERN, I don't know if you know, the 1% of the world's data is read at that place. They don't have a library. It's not physical. So when first scientist, second scientist, third scientist request for a book, before they will buy it. But until then, they will look around and then they will make a request. This idea We've always had it in Ghana, even at the level of the secondary school when you are doing admissions in the past. When your form is not taken by one school, they can send your form to another school for them to look into it and probably admit you. We had all this structure, but when we were automating, we missed all of those things in the process. So you will see that even though you went there as a librarian, it is very possible for a student to borrow a book from another library, except that the challenges that you are mentioning, we've forgotten how to manage it. And maybe at your level as colleague and maybe at UCAS level, there are automated processes that we can use to implement the guidelines and policies that you have, and perhaps address some of these challenges. So that was just a comment to him personally, yes.
Well, this is an aside. We didn't forget how to transfer applications when you are applying for and you are not accepted when we're developing CAPS. So CAPS allows you, yes, please, it's a platform. Let me, it allows you to be transferred to one school or the other. And that's why we have CAPS Small in there. So easy, the GTech in building it thought of something. And it's only a service platform. It's different from but this is not a CAPS, so we will not talk about it. But I just wanted to let you know that as part of scaling up, at least we didn't forget the past.
But let me add that, and since you are city directors, the way forward is for us to subscribe to ebooks. It makes the sharing even easier. Edrom, yeah. So we need to, but there's this challenge about internet again in accessing ebooks. So the way forward, and I must say that the publishers are being very smart about the ebooks, which is also a challenge now. You buy an ebook for perpetual access, and they give you, if it's one person used at a time, which is this one person at a time, what it means is that when one person is using that book, no other person can access it. And they have systems to control that. So it becomes very difficult, even very difficult with ebooks. It's just working like a physical book because of this issue of monetarization. They want to make their money. So I have some ebooks. Sometimes when people are using them, others cannot use. You cannot, you understand? So the sharing to become difficult because even within my university, one is off shelf, no other person can access it. How can I even share that book with another person? So I think we need to be thinking around it. So if we are going for ebooks, the model is very important. The model that you are going to use for the subscription is also very important. I think since you may be involved in the decisions, be informed that, be very careful about the model, the pricing and the access models, so that we don't go and buy ebooks with only one access at a time. Then it's just work like a physical book. Then there's no point going for an ebook. Yes,
thank you very much. All right. So I'm Stephen Senaya from UHAS. I have some suggestions to make. There is a famous scholarly work on how IT projects fail by a group in UK called Standish Group. They do that annually. And significant to that particular report that comes out annually, you often find the issue of business process re-engineering as a key factor, being the reason why these projects may fail within organizations. So as technical people, we tend to want to deliver the product without taking cognizance of the existing business process we seek to replace with our digital innovation. So most often time, these softwares or these technologies will fail. Because if you compare projects we deliver in IT environment compared to, let's say, building a bridge, where everything is done in perspective, we oftentimes will just rush to deliver the product to the user, and then we try to fix or patch bags in this solution, which doesn't even come cheap at times. So I suggest that when we are deploying solutions, we re-engineer the existing business process to fit what we want to do. My second question have to do with the fact that we want to provide digital platform for scholarly works. And there is a saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone, but if you want to go far, you go as a team or together as a team. And for me, I'm very happy seeing GARNET doing all this thing, bringing all the universities on board to drive digital infrastructure for universities in Ghana. I'm looking for an opportunity to see one day looking at the latest advancement in technology in terms of cloud computing and Internet of Things, to have GARNET grown into having our own cloud technology space where universities can also have their own space in the cloud, leveraging on GARNET. So I don't know whether there are discussions on that already. If we can have GARNET space by partnering giant cloud technologies like Azure and AWS, Google, and stuff like that, so we can have opportunity to move our servers and services in the cloud so that we can enjoy some seamless technologies that we seek to achieve within our computing space as far as universities are concerned. If there is something like that, we can be educated on that. Thank you.
Okay, so let me just address the last contribution about the possibility of having cloud infrastructure for GARNET. We've been knocking on the door for more than 5 years now. You all know, so you ask yourselves, why is it that internet bandwidth is so expensive here? And I think Professor Yerenchi touched on it. The way we operate on the internet now reflects the character of our economy. We import almost everything. So if you look at the traffic on our networks, you see that downloads are more than uploads. Okay? The way you can reverse that is to generate content, host it here for other people to consume, in which case it will now be export from here. One sure way of getting that done, we believed, was to encourage the likes of Google, Microsoft to deploy some of their servers in our data center. Okay? But when you make that proposal, the first question they ask you is, do you have reliable power? Do you have secure data centers that can meet the standards that they provide elsewhere? Okay, those will be the questions. I believe now, in recent times, I think Google, Microsoft, they are trying to build their own data centers, in spite of the fact that we have a national data center, which I think, and I believe strongly, meets the standards. But they do not want to rely on that. So they are building their own data centers, and hopefully that would change. I'm also happy to let you know, I believe you know already, that there is a local cloud deployed at the National Data Center now. What we need to do is to be able to take advantage of that. The way GARNET is going is to try and establish a central repository that will harvest from the repositories that Kalik is working on deploying on the various university campuses. And that was what Professor Yerenchi talked about. You need to have your own repositories that you can always rely on if you lose contact with the central repository. but you need a centralized repository that will harvest from all of these repositories. One key thing, though, is where are the standards? Okay? There has to be in place a standard that ensures that the repositories can, seamlessly and more effectively, in a clean manner, interact. Because you cannot have at one site information that is not in clear alignment with the center and have it extract. No, we know that standardization in data and information management is very, very important. Let me just also say that in terms of connectivity, the way GARNET is operated, we don't have our own infrastructure. Okay? GARNET has no fiber optics infrastructure, and therefore we ride on the back of the telcos. Okay? To do this, you need to be able to negotiate very well. So what we've done, and I believe all of you know, is to negotiate standard rates for everybody. The University of Ghana, KNUST, UCC can go to the market and negotiate good rates because they have the numbers. They can negotiate. But a small university like UESD will go to the market and they will not have the leverage. And that's why it's important for all of us to come together and to go to the market as one body. You would understand why we currently enjoy low rates comparatively. It is because we aggregate all of the demands of the universities and go to market and say, this is what we want. And when we get a good price, that price is now available to all of us. And so we need to ensure that we work together. Someone says that if you work alone, you work fast. But if you work together, you go far. Therefore, let's ensure that we don't go individually to negotiate for services. Let's negotiate together and patronize the GARNET mobile data bundle. That GARNET data bundle is a response to the need for mobility within the community. And so these are the few comments that I'll make. Maybe tomorrow we can talk more about it. Thank you very much.
Hello. Okay. I have a simple question, still on the bandwidth. Okay, so my question is, what goes into the practical performance of the bandwidth? Because you buy bandwidth from two providers, maybe, let me use GARNET as an example, and then Vodafone. The same price, even your interface, you might even check and you are seeing it at that same level, maybe 155 or 300. 155, that's 1 STM. But when it comes to the practical aspect of it, you are seeing a vast difference between the two over a period. So I wanted to know.
Okay. So I just want to ask just one simple question on the GARNET data. So far, GARNET is doing very well with data, and now they are also going on the cellular networks. But I think that one area perhaps GARNET needs to look at is to add on voice services, especially onto the data, the SIMs, because most of us are issuing out SIMs to students which has the two services. And so I think that if GARNET will be able to penetrate that area, they need to look at adding on to voice to the data SIM, and that will take us a bit far. Just a comment. Yes, onto the GARNET SIM. Yes, now you're working with Tigo, of course, you need a platform, you need the infrastructure, but whilst you're doing that, maybe you should consider adding voice to the data services.
So are we done with the questions and comments?
Well, he just
No, has anyone got anything else?
Yeah, he just asked a question about voice. But you know, we can do voice over IP. And we've just piloted one in our office. We need to engage the community. First of all, as Prof. Yenchi said, sometimes you need to develop the service and then try and get people to buy into it. I can announce to you that we have done it. We've tested it. In fact, in our office, use it to communicate. Now we will come to you, discuss it, and see how we can roll out. That will be voice over IP across the whole community. Okay. Now, I didn't quite understand the question about difference in bandwidth. Now, what I can say is, when GARNET gives you 155 Mbps, 1 STM, it is dedicated 155. I'm not sure whether when you procure 155 from other telcos, you do get that. Because remember, they are commercial entities, and sometimes it's a shared service. Okay? Sometimes it's a shared service. We do know that some of you, to determine whether you are getting the full capacity that you are paying for. We have at times been able to determine that some of you are being shortchanged. And when we discover that, we do engage the telcos. We currently have an issue that we are working on. An institution procured 155. They've been paying 155, but they actually are not getting that. And so we've contacted to say, you cannot shortchange our members. We need to be able to work on that. Right? Thank you.
Yeah, let me make a comment about the bandwidth. I think that in as much as we are making a case for adding on to our bandwidth, we have to address the issue of waste of bandwidth in our universities. In fact, there's so much misuse of bandwidth that I don't know what the IT people are thinking about. The students come and they are on all kinds of sites, YouTube, doing useless things that are non-academic. I met one like that. He told me that what he's doing is also academic because he's a biology or whatever student. He has to do what he's doing. So we need, and I don't know, if you go to some of the corporate organizations, I was at Bank of Ghana for something, I couldn't open my web mail. The system will not even allow you to open it. You can't open it unless they allow you. You understand? You can't open some sites. You can't open. So we should begin to think about blocking some site at some point in the day. You understand? So that we manage, because I've noticed that there's a lot of misuse. So no matter how much we add on, if we don't control the usage, it will still be misused. So please, let's have a way of blocking some sites. YouTube cannot be blocked again, but I don't know. You can block, but
you are blocking me from what? Facebook or where? No, this one, doctor. You see, I agree the wastage is there, but right to information, my freedom of access. Well, that's the whole point. It's about the cat, the bull and the cat issue. How do you define what is important to me? For example, I have a program to teach, and I've run a set of questions, and I'm doing a social network analysis, and I've put up a question, or I'm mining data from Facebook, and you've blocked it. So whilst I'm mining data, I'm watching a movie. It's concurrency. No, you see, that's the thing. Sometimes I appreciate where you are coming from, and I have the same issues in our office. But like the man said, it's biology, and he's a biology teacher. And he's undertaking practical lessons and taking notes so he can teach well. It is difficult to manage the nuances of these policy spaces. Probably what you can do is that when you find out, because it is possible at the technical level to sit at the server spaces and see whichever site a particular workstation is hitting. On the average, you can tell, and you know which ones are relevant if you resolve the IPs. And so on the basis of this, you can determine how you allocate bandwidth to certain spaces. For example, if you allocate a bandwidth that makes it possible for you to only access Science Direct within the shortest possible time, meanwhile making it frustratingly difficult to access YouTube, obviously, what would I do if I have time? I would focus more on Science Direct. And when the bandwidth goes up, because we all learn, the good thing about human beings is that our ability to learn is very fast. Within 3 days, the whole system would have learned that between 6 p.m. and 10 p.m., you can access YouTube very fast. We will wait. We will access it at that time, and we will eat up all your bandwidth within a short time.
So these days, these are general problems in what we call the university networks because of the limit that is given to students and faculty against academic freedom and the rest. But, for every problem, there are solutions to them. So there are now learning algorithms that are built into the network that studies user profiles automatically with all the compliance. So it's not like a human being checking and clicking someone, but it will learn the user's profile and make certain suggestions too, because the way learning works is that they also learn about certain spaces on the internet where they know that they are not what you are saying, and they will come and compare that with what you have in your local and make certain suggestions, and based on those policies you can implement. Again, I'm coming back to a policy. It doesn't matter whether you have academic freedom or not. When there's a policy that there are things you cannot do, you cannot do them. I remember when I was in Geneva, for Skype, for example, you can't use your own port. If you want to use Skype, you must use a specific port. They will tell you so that they can tell what is going on. And then when you are doing something that is wrong, system would cut you. So work on your policies and send them through the process. And trust me, you are protected by data protection in some of these things, and you can resolve them technically. So I'm always coming back to you as technical people, some of the things that you can do to answer, some of the questions like this, that should you allow them to access or should you stop them? There's a middle ground there. You build a policy with sound grounding, and then you implement those policies as an institution, because your bandwidth is always going to be limited. Yes, thank you.
Let me add that you really have to help, because, and it comes down to what we have discussed this morning about communication. We're having an international video conference in my university, and we have a video conference facility in the library. And I realized that the internet wasn't helping. So I quickly called the person in charge. Then he said, you know what, I'm going to block some people and give you adequate this space for you to have your conference. So for me, it comes down to what Doc was saying. Sometimes you have to do that. There's an international conference that uses hosting. It's a priority to the university. So if we have to get it done, so that next time the organizer will not say, because you couldn't have enough internet, we won't give you again. Stop somewhere and move the thing there so that we can have that program successfully. So the IT people should not just be sitting down. I think you should have a system to be knowing this in and redirect, so that it's not, and of course, some communication must go on. If you are doing that, if some people have been blocked, it's good to tell them that because of some challenges, what we don't communicate. Sometimes there's a problem that has been brought to our attention, you are dealing with it. People should understand that you can solve some of these things in a day. Sometimes it takes time. But people don't know that you are doing something about it. They just think that you have come for the server, you have come for this, and nothing is happening. It means for 1 month, nothing is happening. Let's communicate what we are doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very, very much. I think it's been a very fruitful discussion. Can we kindly put our hands together for panelists? Before we go for lunch and I call on Prof. Clifford Niboy-Tego to give some remarks, let me take the opportunity to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Cynthia Sena-Peglo, the Executive Secretary for Vice Chancellor's Ghana and the former Registrar of US. And also we have in our midst Dr. Palanga, who is the Chairman for the Board of Directors for West and Central Africa Research and Education Network, all the way from Lomé. He's here with us. So I'll kindly call on Professor Tego to give some remarks before we go for lunch.
I'll stand there. I intentionally asked to speak last. They say when the chief speaks, nobody else speaks. So Peter, you better be very careful. Don't ask for the mic. Now, I just want to, well, first acknowledge the presence of Wakren Chairman and Executive Secretary of VCG. We are honored to have you here with us. And to say that I'm really very pleased with what I've heard here. The fact that GARNET has been able to provide the platform for all the great things, great ideas that are being espoused here beyond our normal mandate. We've even allowed conditions of service to be discussed here. I have a few comments on some of the things. Let me start from the last about the management of the bandwidth thing. In 2006, when ICT had just started picking up in the institutions, we had 6 gig upstream or downstream and 2 gig. I'm sure you understand those things better than I do. And we had to put in a policy to block all those third-party things. So, Evans, this is not, it's not freedom of speech. It is not academic freedom. It is just management of your resource. If you can pay for whatever, 3,000 gig or, you can allow people to use it anyhow, but you must manage it. And I share some of the ideas that have come up that, look, it is possible. There are various things you can do. Now, the question of the repository. I like going back into history because that's where you learn from, because you don't also want to reinvent the wheel. If you don't know the history, you reinvent the wheel. Now, where is the librarian? He's gone. The University of Ghana Library, BAM Library, and Padmore Library. How many of you know Padmore Library? It's still there. It's supposed to be the repositories for all publications in Ghana. I don't know if they're still doing it. In those days, if you published a book, you had a journal, it was at Padmore Library that you would get your there's a problem. So the question I wanted to put to him is whether Padmore Library is part of CALIG. Where is he coming? Dr. Kobler, we wanted to know if Padmore Library is part of CALIG. They are not. And that's a shame because they are the repository for this country. All books, all, journals are supposed to be lodged, copies are supposed to be lodged there. And there are people who know that they still issue the ISBN numbers for publications. Indeed, they and the University of Ghana Library, even laws passed by Parliament, by law, you're supposed to deposit copies in these two libraries. Maybe KNUST Library has been added to it. I don't know. Now, I think it's lunchtime. I had a lot more to say, but let me just congratulate the organizers of this session. I think it's been wonderful, and we think that next year we can then add the more scientific bits to it as we decided in Tamale. So you're welcome once again, and thank you very much for this wonderful session. The afternoon is also going to be wonderful.
So lunch will be at the School of Pharmacy block, but please all the board members and other invited guests kindly remain seated as the others leave. Thank you very much. So we are reconvening at 2. Exactly 2 will start the second session. But can we kindly all move closer down here so we can take a group photograph? You are discharged.